to the Twitch and see if it's up here. I think we're live.
Yeah.
Network error. Hey, if this is on the VOD, anybody watching this on
Uh-oh.
YouTube?
Oh, we got Phil. Yeah, we got Phil Star. Phil Star in the house. Okay. This reminds me of a MetaZoo Market Monday back when we used to kind of get it rocking, have everybody there.
Yeah.
Pete's,
so if you're
Pete's
watching on the YouTube later, we got I've never streamed on Twitch before, so we got this set up. But okay, I just went on Twitch. It looks like we're up. Everyone, if you have any issues with like our levels or anything, just let me know. I'll turn this up and down. But
for sure. What's up, Jib? Pete, Phil, what's up?
There we go.
Wayward Caster, what's happening? Yeah, this is good. This is giving me
sounding
good feels.
Right.
All right.
And I'm wondering if I should have this Twitch up just so I can see who's all in here. Let's see. I'll pull it up on the laptop.
MetaZoo Town Hall. Yes, yes, yes.
We're here to talk. We're here to connect with the community.
Yeah, we're talking about everything. This is a 2023 year review of MetaZoo, the good, bad, and the ugly, and everything in between.
Absolutely. So do we just want to sit here and chat for 5 minutes? Do we let people get in here? We want to launch into it.
Let's give it 5 minutes. If y'all could y'all let people know, whether it be in the Facebook groups, Discords, just in the message like, hey, we're live. I mean, we've already let people know, but I think this is a really important conversation that needs the entire community. This isn't just a player thing. This isn't just a LGS thing. This isn't just a collector thing. This is kind of just a community. So we definitely want to bring in everybody.
Yeah, we took notes. We've been taking notes the last week. So.
Yeah. Oh. Yo. How we doing?
Adam's here. Who wants to play StarCraft with us while we watch this town hall?
Pain's in the house.
Yeah.
So glad we get that Casher Cup 2023 and 2024. Who knows? He did say postponed. He didn't say canceled. So that, that leaves the door open.
Yeah. Well, and that's where like, I don't like to. There's nothing more satisfying when you go to like a magician's or a magic show, and they're like, they're like, answer a question, and then they say, look under your chair, and you open it, and it's your question. You're like, how did you do that? But I felt like it was too easy. One of my last Towers episodes, I'm like, look, this is what I think is gonna happen with Caster Cup, and then it was just that. I was like, they're gonna have this kind of announcement. We got to get that client involved. Like,
was it even an announcement? I felt like it was like a drive-by, like whisper.
So here's the thing: like people like Argos put it in their announcements, but yeah.
Shout out to Argos for that.
Comment. Yeah, thank you, Argos.
Shout out to the Salt Caverns and those that are here. We are speaking for everybody, but we aren't gonna be like uber negative. We're just gonna be like,
we're honest. Playing it real. We're going to be very honest. So it's, you got to keep in mind, and maybe we'll start talk about us here. Like, Easton's been in the game since the start. Like, I remember watching Easton come on every stream talking about like, hey, we all need to band together to get this game going. Like, the companies needs to do its part. And then while they're doing their part, the players need to come in, the partners need to come in. So, Easton's not coming in bad faith. And I spent the last year making a podcast for other beginners like me that I put like a lot of work into. We're not haters, but we're very community focused. And that's where we're doing town hall, because the community needs to talk.
Yeah. And it doesn't need to necessarily be it needs to be kind of honest. Like, I think that like Esther was saying, we're not selling you on anything, or our positions aren't tied or heavily leveraged towards MetaZoo. Granted, I did win Cash Cup the first and only Cash Cup at this point. But I don't want this to be anything. We're not affiliated. We are just like fans, enthusiasts, two people that genuinely love the card game, but feel like, we need to do a review.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we're getting close to 5:05. We want to start doing introductions. Guts, no one wants to see MetaZoo fail 100%. Wayward Caster, we want to see it succeed 100%. That's what we're here for. And the thing everyone says is the best part about MetaZoo is the community, which is where we're trying to bring everybody together, show up, have this conversation. Because it's hard to get an unbiased platform for a lot of valid reasons. If you got a partner doing a thing, they've got restrictions on what they can say. You got people who are trying to, be in MetaZoo's favor. That's something where I have an advantage because I like MetaZoo a lot. I'm trying to help build the brand. At the same time, like I don't want to, I'm not trying to do this as a living. Like this is a hobby for me as far as content creation goes. So I'm here for the people.
For sure. And most importantly, I think that this is where we all can voice and have some type of discussion where it's not like, okay, what is the question? What are the issues? I think we're covering all of 2023. Anything that may have happened underneath the MetaZoo umbrella, we are going to be talking about. We're not sparing any, every stone will be turned. So I definitely want to give you all that peace of mind, because sometimes it is disheartening when you do go into conversations and people are doing it where some talking points might be discouraged and so on and so forth. And last but not least, I know that a lot of people are, becoming a little bit more boisterous and maybe even creating like burner accounts. If you need to, you can create a burner account, get off the stuff off your chest. We are here. We are open and safe place.
Yeah, absolutely. This isn't, we're not here we're here to be productive, and being productive is going to result in criticism. And talking about what we think can be done, and also just like catharsis, I think is important. That's something I've seen the MetaZoo community call for a lot, is people just want to be heard. People want to have the conversation so you can work through, you can process. And so, yeah, I love the idea. If you want a burner, do it. It's cool. Like,
sure.
All right. You want to get into introductions? You want to kick us off as the vet here?
For sure. So for those that don't know, Easton Evans, most popularly known for winning the first and only Caster Cup so far.
You're the reigning champion. Nobody's been allowed to join you.
Exactly. I don't even know if there's even the Tower Casters, do they even have the teams or anything? You remember the teams that they were supposed to have, the group of four? Yeah. Well, that's not even there. But that's pretty much a decent intro. I played for years. I've collected
talk
even
about
beforehand.
Your team a little bit.
So Quetz Coalition, main man Kai.
Shout out Kai.
Shout out to Kai. Shout out to the whole squad. I could go through everybody, but definitely shout out to Quetz Coalition. Just playing. We're at the core of it all friends. We love TCGs, but most importantly, I like them because they're really good people, quality people. We play League of Legends pretty regularly, so that's the team I'm on. And yeah, so we just play. I've been around since Patreon days. So before you could buy Kickstarter stuff, or slightly after the Kickstarter, they had a Patreon where you could pay $5, $10, or $50, and you can buy Kickstarter product. So that's when I first got into it. I found out about MetaZoo through an Instagram ad, and I'm like, dang, this stuff is like Pokemon. It's super sick. And then got into MetaZoo, bought some Kickstarter boxes. They shot up to $8,000. I was going to go to play at Houston Collecticon and open them so I could play with the deck. But I realized that, these are worth $8,000. So Logan Paul is probably going to open them in a couple of years, and they're going to be worth $1 million. And so I never opened them. But yeah, that's how I got started, and just been playing ever since. And yeah, I've seen not everything, but I've seen quite a bit. I like to think that I've been to majority of the conventions. So Emerald City Comic Con, E2C2. So I've been able to see the grassroots, how MetaZoo's grown from small conventions to going to these larger ones and having towers and cash cups and stuff like that as well.
Great. And then Bats, I saw your comment. I'm gonna turn my mic up. Just let me know if I start peaking or anything. I'm a sound person, so I want it to sound good, but I know this mic can be quiet. My name is Esther. I've been collecting the game since before first edition dropped, but like a couple months before first edition dropped. Cryptids got me in the door. And so I played Pokemon when I was like 10, Pokemon League, highlight memories, did that for like a year, got all those little badges they give you. But I haven't played card games since. And so MetaZoo got me back in the door. I didn't really have people to play with. We didn't really have a lot of LGS going on in SoCal near me. And so I would just make decks. I'd pay attention to what was going on. I would show some friends. But it really wasn't until the towers kicked off. And I'd been intending on making a MetaZoo podcast kind of from the beginning. I'm a sound designer, so I'm like, oh, I can bring some of that like cartoon energy to this. But I, wanted to choose the right moment. So Towers was the right moment. So I went and qualified for Water Tower. I won my qualifier, which was my first like taste of victory. I like competing. I'm not I'm not like a competitor. I don't care if I win or lose. I just want to put up like the best fight I can. But yeah, went to Water Tower, interviewed some people for the podcast, and started Towers of MetaZoo podcast. Whole purpose of that thing was I saw myself as a beginner, so I wanted to take beginner and intermediate players to try to get to top 32. Made it to top 32 tower, my second tower, Earth Tower. I went to all of the towers, joined up Legion of Doom, shout out, more of my Legion of Doom shirt, which is Logan, Herman, Phil. We got Chris, we got Ricky, and so it's a great crowd. They brought me on, and then we did Flame and Dark Tower together. But so I've been here since the beginning of first edition. But it's been like, I feel like 2023 was my real year with MetaZoo. I didn't exist like publicly with MetaZoo until 2023.
Sick. What's up, Tormentic? Quick question Payne had. Any fun rivals or competitive matchups that have spanned the ages of your play? I'll let you take that first.
Okay, rivalries. That's a good. So locally, Brian, if you're out there, locally, Brian's got that light deck, and I'm a cosmic player, and we get matched up all the time. And so I beat him once with my cosmic deck, and that was on a side game. But I always like playing Brian because it's like, okay, let's see. I can take on anyone else with this deck, but I beat other light players all the time. It was just Brian. And he says it's luck, but, Brian won Long Beach, so he's a good player. Yeah. And then I just got to shout out Xavi. Not that it's a rivalry, but we just get paired up every single tournament we play at. But I didn't, my goal was like, I wanted to play all the players who were in the game. Mm-hmm. And so it was good to play, like great to play Easton, Earth Tower. I got to play Kai locally. Like anytime I sat across from someone, it's like, okay, this is going to add to my experience. Something I read when I was trying to figure out like, okay, why do people go to like regionals outside of winning? Talking about like Magic the Gathering. And something that I thought was pretty profound is the person said like, we go to these events to play high levels at our card game. So that was an attitude I always take in is like, I want to play high level MetaZoo and I want to play with all the players. And so, yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
As far as rivalry goes, I'm always hungry. I'm like, all right, who else can I play? And then my team, loves kicking my ass and vice versa. We just played against each other so much that there's not really tracking wins, but
for sure.
You've got more history with the competitive scene and other teams. So
I'm trying to think. It might be. I mean, I think all of Logan and I's games have been really, really good. I think the first iteration of that was Pro Support Weekend, and that's if anybody's seen on Logan's page when he's holding up the Quets, and it's like it's Quets o'clock. That was when we first played, and that's when the water deck made its appearance right during the Nightfall block, and that was when it kind of took over the meta, just because it's a really good deck. But Logan's always are really, really good matchups. Ricky, Ricky and I always have really good matchups. But I think I found a lot of value in some of the new players that when I play, and there's so many, especially the first couple of rounds, you play on like new players or people that are trying to get things going. And when they're trying to, Tormentic, our matchup was that top 32 match was sick. But I like I guess the tougher ones are the ones that span a little bit more are the newer players, because I think our interactions, especially if you are an experienced TCG player, you can make it tough for them by, being really, really hard on them. But we want to keep people in MetaZoo, so it's better to maybe like, hey, can I take this back? Sure. Like, let's, kind of those things I think are a little bit more valuable to me than it's just like, oh, we had this like back and forth best out of 3. I think it's more of those are the ones that always span in my mind.
Yeah. Shout out NorCal Caster. Shout out Moldy. I see Dirty in the chat. It's going to be a good night. So we wanted to kick this off. We're storytellers, and so we're like, what's the best way to do this stream where things flow naturally? It's interesting for y'all, and it also like covers the year. And we thought the gala was a good, if you're in game design at all, there's a thing called a vertical slice, which is like ideally the first 45 minutes, hour of your game, you want to show every aspect of your game, whether it be story, combat, whatever. And I thought the gala, the Earth Tower native gala, was the best vertical slice of MetaZoo. And so, Easton, do you want to kind of kick off, talk about this gala?
So for those that don't know, you can put in the chat if you did show up to the I don't know. Is it gala? Is it like tomato?
I think it's gala? Tomato. I think it depends on what part of the country you're in.
Okay. Well, if you went to the gala, it was we're in New York. So this is for the native release. Just to set the stage, we didn't know where it was going to be until maybe like a week before it was going to take place. Then we found out that we needed to have nice tuxes. So they needed to be kind of fitted correctly. We needed to look nice and dapper,
but maybe suits were fine. If you had to like track down Discord chat to be like, okay, am I gonna get turned away at this thing?
For sure. Then you're like, well, what do I get at the gala? Like, do I get a gala box? Oh, that's cool. It's gonna be exclusive to the gala because it's a gala box, but it's not gonna be anywhere else. As well, most galas have like food, or like you're sitting down and eating, or you're like in like an event hall.
Yeah,
we were in a pretty, what was it, nightclub?
It wasn't even, it was like a dive bar nightclub. It's like the stuff, I'm in Los Angeles, so it's like the stuff we got out here because there's not enough room. But yeah, it was gala. So we were like, okay, food, there's supposed to be an auction. I straight, like, all my friends are like, what is this thing? I'm like, I have no idea, and so I have to go. I need to, like, a card game release gala in New York City. I don't know I don't know if we're gonna be sitting down at tables. How
much were the tickets?
They're $100. It was $100 to donate to a charity. I don't know. That was the same thing with the auction. Auction was supposed to go towards a charity. So like for me, I got invited. I missed like the sign up, and then later, like a week before the gala, they sent me another message being like, hey, do you want to go? Like, please buy a ticket. I think because it was like I got a top 32 ticket, and I was not top 32 at Water Tower, and so we go. I remember getting in line, saying hi to everyone. Kai brought 2 native boxes to me because I was like, we got Earth Tower tomorrow. That's the biggest thing. Earth Tower was the next morning. This gala, we didn't know what time it was going to be, but we know gala's probably going to go late, and there's probably going to be drinking, and we got a tournament tomorrow.
Shout out to Shaw.
Yeah. So
Shaw with the open bar.
Yep. And so we show up. It is not a sit down event. It is us going down into it. Like, it reminds me of places where they do like small wedding receptions. If you're in like Tahoe or something, just an underground, you can look up pictures. It's on everybody's Instagram. We get there, there's no communication, but we do see the auction items. We see that secret rare original artwork.
We did. It was, I mean, everybody was like kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed kind of going into that event. And, I mean, the highlight for me was the open bar of chips and queso and guacamole that everybody was just like eating. Well, I personally wasn't eating it, but I think that was a very interesting little area where I saw that was, as well as, the pack handing out. Like, we had nothing else to do.
Well, so that was the thing. We got in. We didn't know what the itinerary is. I think like an hour in, Mike showed up with the whole posse. I ended up hanging out with one of his friends for a while. But like they went up, did a small announcement. I think they did something on like a live, and then it was just like nothing. Everyone's like, "Where's the gala boxes?" Because it was. I feel like I don't know if it was stated or implied that we'd be able to buy native product there. Um, but it's like, okay, what's the deal with these gala boxes, and what's the auction, when's all of this? And we
Yeah.
didn't hear nothing.
Nothing.
And
I did see Bailey with an uncut sheet of fusion auras that I really want because those are kind of sick.
yeah, well, and that was you got to keep in mind. I was holding my 2 boxes from Kai. Everyone, I was just walking around passing these out because nobody had seen them before, including the staff, because like it had just officially dropped like that day. And so we're sitting around, and then eventually, I want to say, as Logan comes out and starts opening boxes and throwing them into the crowd.
Yeah, them
And then
packs
this
for like
keeps
Ninja
going.
Stars.
And this keeps going. And eventually it gets more. I got hit in the back of the head with so many of these packs. I go outside. I come back in like 90 minutes later. You see Fajir up there. Everyone's sweating. And after that, it was a dance party. And we still didn't know when these gala boxes were coming out. And then we're whispering because like I don't want to call it any names, but people wanted to go to bed. People wanted to set up for Earth Tower.
We have Tower tomorrow.
And so eventually we get a whisper. I want to say at like 11 that like, okay, they're going to line up at the door. You're going to get this gala box. But they'd already sold like people thought they sold out the gala boxes because they were on eBay. There's just no communication. However, we turned that shit into a party. I was up on stage with
Fist
Allie and
pumping.
Bats and everybody. We were dancing. And that's why I think the gala, and eventually we did get the gala boxes, everybody dipped because, well, and that was the thing. A lot of people weren't drinking because they wanted to compete. And by the end, they're like, screw it. I'm going to get some alcohol.
Yeah, open bar, you might as well.
Yeah. And so we like made our own fun. That was a memorable night, but we went in not knowing what was going on. The main thing that we saw was them throwing native packs at people for like an hour and a half. Shout out to the people who collected multiple booster boxes.
Those packs were juiced. Like I saw like so many like Piazza Birds, Wendigo, like.
And that was when Piazza Bird was real hot. Like I traded a Piazza Bird for a Fusion the next morning just because like I wasn't, I didn't have like a partner hookup or anything. But so that, and I think why we bring up the gala first, because it's like something with no communication. We don't know where it is. We don't know what the rules are. We show up. We still don't know what's going on. And the people who pick up the slack are like crew, people like Shaw. And then the players. We made our own fun. And then the FOMO kicked in of the investment fallacy of like, I want to go. I'm competing tomorrow. However, if I leave and 10 minutes later, they're going to be handing out these boxes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I don't even know if these boxes are worth anything. Like I've seen that Sam promo for like $25, but like
not anymore. But I remember back in the day, it was pretty coveted because you were supposed to only get it at the gala, or I think during the auction time, but I guess they were like selling it or doing stuff afterwards.
They sold it on eBay. Yeah, you could just buy them.
So it made it to where you felt as if you had to go so you could, participate, 2, be able to get the gala boxes, and 3, make sure that, you want to be in the know. But per usual, which is kind of like the premise of this entire conversation, we didn't know what was going on. We really didn't hear about much of it until, maybe a week out. And even when we got there, we didn't necessarily get the gala that we thought we were sold on. So,
and then the players made the fun.
Yeah.
Partners like Kai showed up with the product so we could get some product the day before, like all that. But
just to answer some of the questions, your ticket should have gotten you one. Well, actually, some people weren't able to get one at the end of the night. They ran out of boxes, but some people had a handful of boxes that they left with.
Yeah, the theory the later the night went by is that they didn't have enough boxes. They might have either sold enough. So, and I don't want to speculate too much because we have plenty for this stream to do without speculation, just based on hard facts. But that was the theory that like they were waiting for people to filter out so that they could, everyone who stayed could get a gala box. And that's, getting into the technicalities isn't what it's about. We just thought that would be a good kind of story to share to kick this thing off. until we start talking about the community itself, 2023. Because we always start off talking about all you before we get into the technicalities of like what's it like being a collector, a competitive player, all that in 2023.
For sure. And again, this conversation is not isolated to players. This is collectors, LGS's partners. If you worked at an event, if you're MZO, anything, everybody underneath the umbrella is a part of this. This isn't just something just from the player side, because I would consider myself multifaceted. I don't just play. I have a pretty decent collection, and I have sold MetaZoo products, but I don't do any of that stuff anymore.
Yeah, and I've been a collector from the beginning. I'm a content creator. That was going to be my main shtick, and then I got hooked on competitive play, thanks to all these guys.
For sure. So Esther, we were talking about what would be the story for MetaZoo in 2023, and I think we came to a conclusion that it was the mistrust of the players, partners, and the collectors. And the misuse of the trust of the players, partners, and collectors. While there has been a lot of good, and this isn't to slight anybody, there has also been a lot of low points for not only us as individuals, but collectively. And if anybody is just saying like, oh, nothing, MetaZoo's done great by me, hey, that's your experience and you're validating it. But I think maybe I can speak, or Esther can speak, or we're just trying to aggregate all of the collective issues and also highlight some of the good things, because there were some good things, and Absolutely. Also a lot of good people that helped along the way, because there were judges, event coordinators, R&D, play testers, a lot of people, artists, a lot of people who helped collectively push MetaZoo up, but might not necessarily have gotten the just due or recognition. And this isn't I'm not going to isolate people one by one, but just know that if you created content, if you judged, if you play tested, if you're R&D, if you're an artist, if you did anything, we see you, we recognize you, and we thank you for your contributions, because we all collectively invested time that you could have been elsewhere to help maneuver and move MetaZoo up in its popularity. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what, our kind of highlight thing was rising tide. Everything, if you're helping the collectors, you're helping the players. If you're helping the players, all of these things go together. And you're talking about trust, which I think is going to be the theme. I feel like a big theme of 2023 was frustration of, people were willing to meet you more than halfway, willing to meet you 80% and 85%. And it was that last 10 to 15% that you're never sure what's going to go on that. And this goes down to financial, the releases, competitive information, even little things like Native dropping a day before Earth Tower, and other things like, Native being the only core set we got this year. So people can argue about Kuromi. It's got the Krypton Nation symbol up in the left-hand corner. I have not heard about playtesting for it, so I'm going to consider us going from Native to, obviously, Kuromi cards are going to be relevant going into the future, but I see a lot of people, and often the most frustrated people or the most upset people are the people who put the most effort into this game, whether it be content creation, they're going around proselytizing to the different LGSs, or they're LGSs themselves. And so, we want to give a voice to that and then try to get to the bottom of it as well.
For sure. And again, towards Esther's point, rising tides do raise all the boats. It's not one of those ones where it's like, hey, the players are isolated, or the PFP NFT crowd is here, or the investor collector whales are over here, or the LGSs are here. We all work in an ecosystem that is reliant on each other, working and cohabitating together. And so sometimes when it is disparaging when you hear conversations or comments where it's like, oh, well, who cares about collectors because y'all aren't very involved into the game. No, that's, somewhat disparaging. And I've been an advocate of that. Also, there's disparaging comments where it may be, oh, well, the players, it's only 300 players. So what about Casher Cup? That was $1 million wasted if it does that. I think that we're missing a lot of the points just because, you know, we might all have a joint frustration. It just might come from different views. And so we're having this town hall to where people can talk as well and ask questions, but also paint a picture, because you have two individuals who are, from a historical perspective, I think, you know, from the get-go, even with my time at Caster Society, involved with, you know, the early onset of the competitive scene, but also have seen the collection side, have seen multiple groups within MetaZoo change, and, you know, R&D changes and stuff like that. And we also have someone as professional and polished as Esther to give a very holistic view on that. And we can put that together to create a picture, allow you all to digest it, and then us to ask questions and also point out things that are good and things that are not so good.
Absolutely. So we're talking about kind of kicking this off, you know, after shouting out, you know, we're here for the community. We're part of the community. Like, this is the community. And there's going to be people who come after us as well. And that's that chain. We don't want to lose history in that process as well. But we wanted, you know, in talking about the different pillars, we wanted to start with collectors. What was it like being a collector in 2023? What was the experience like? What was, you know, good, the frustration? What are your insights on that, Easton?
At this point, from the collector's point of view, I can see it. The prices are dropping drastically. You know, we'll get into the chromey stuff later, but just from a price point, things have gone down. Now there's macroeconomic issues. We don't have the huge bubble of, you know, of 2021 and things kind of going to the moon and going euphoric. That those days are long and gone. But the crash landing isn't soft. It's really just like heavy turbulence. And most importantly, you know, there are a significant amount of delays. There are plenty of products. I mean, I'm sure the chat can like help fill in the gaps, but I'm like, third anniversary, streamer kits, NFTina,
Legacy. Am I
Legacy.
Is Legacy shipping this week? Have we seen any Legacy? Only thing
Yeah.
I've seen is a Japanese Flatwoods monster, like upper page, which I want. And PP Squeeps. This is not a softball thing. This is constructive, but
Nah.
we're playing it real.
Yeah, we're playing it real. Like it at this point, it's I don't know, a little bit unprofessional in a way where, you know, the product roadmap, like anybody who's working from, you know, a business aspect, you have a roadmap where you allocate resources, your budget, your time into doing so. Now, again, there are things that may change that, where you might find an opportunity and that might alter your roadmap. But for the most part, I think that I've seen a couple of different maps. I know I think it was Cutthroat. They in MetaZoo Archive, they have a updated product roadmap, but less than the things that were promoted from last year. I think it's like a 75% fail rate. Like they just keep adding in things like random. Also, everything is like a pre-order, but granted, things were pre-orders beforehand, but it's a little bit different pre-order. It doesn't seem like a pre-order that's like, oh, this is coming out in a reasonable time. It just seems a little bit like.
Let's talk about the most recent thing you can buy right now, which is these Cryptid Clash packs, right? We're going to get in theory, original artwork. We're going to get artwork that goes with the Cryptid Clash. You're going to get a redeemable card. You're going to get you're going to get these different things. And we don't know when those are going to ship. We don't know when Cryptid Clash is going to be up for doing it. Like and they're $7 a pack, not including shipping, which is often quite a bit. And so it's a matter of if you want to purchase that product, and I don't blame you, because I think a lot of us are excited for Cryptid Clash. There's a lot you don't know going in. Like, is that going to be an exclusive card? If you're someone who wants to do competitive, I don't think that's going to be like you need this card to be competitive. I hope not. But also for us who got money stuck up in Legacy, which has not shown up, Legacy, their whole thing with that product was these are going to have redeemable cards, which going into collectors, people who want to collect all arts, people who like playing with all arts, like that's an attractive prospect. And then if you're someone who you like to open, but you don't plan on playing Cryptid Clash, and that way we can work together and pass those cards out, But are we getting redeemable cards in Legacy, when I think that's when a number of people purchase that product for that reason? Also, like myself, I bought Legacy because it was supposed to drop before Caster Cup, and I didn't want to be left out in the cold. And that's kind of, we'll get into the competitive thing of, there are sacrifices you make with competitive. You buy cards that you're not going to end up using just in case. But as a collector, there's a lot of mystery product getting dropped. They're usually slow windows. And then the big feature products we've actually heard about, they're on pre-sale for a long time, and then they either come out. You got Kuromi right now, like, or they don't come out. But like, looking, I feel like Native kind of kicked off a high point, because Seance obviously had struggles. While there are things that can be done, you look at early Magic, all that, like, for all the sets we've had, because MetaZoo has had like an impressive set release up until the summer for an indie TCG. Like, it's quite notable. And I think that deserves credit. I think that kept a lot of us in the game. It kept our trust. But like, Native people were excited because Seance had the hiccup, and I think a hiccup's going to happen. And in that world where Easton was going to make $1 million because Logan Paul was going to be opening up that box in 10 years, can you imagine the chase for a possessed aura when you're like, we don't know if this is a reverse hollow box. We cannot confirm, the history of the box we're opening. That's a thing that can happen. And then Native felt like such a high point because the prices stayed high. People are happy with the product. They're happy competitively. The fusion auras.
Yeah, I think that there's also, let's go through the timeline of what has gone on. So we'll just go past second edition, because I think the obvious thing is, it's like, oh, they're overprinted. Oh, they're over leveraged, this, that, and a third. But at this point, we're multiple releases in the back of MetaZoo's mind. So we have Nightfall. Nightfall had the poor card quality, and you could map the packs with the full hollows by the pack art. So that's, let's just call it spade a spade.
Seance, right?
No. Nightfall.
Oh, Nightfall, you could map it?
Yeah, you can look at that. You can map it across the from one side to the other based off the pack art.
Oh, gotcha.
Wilderness, who cares? Nobody. The pull rate was abysmal. You had the sigils. Did you have you get that reverse hollow box and you're just like,
so Easton, what you gotta know about me is I came in here, something I always pick up a card is I will look at an ugly card that is selling for high, and I'm like, this card's ugly, and yet it's competitive, so we all turn around on it. But I also do that, I hold up the Cumberland Dragon, and I'm like, if this card was a secret rare, that would not surprise me, and we'd all be running after it. So that's something because cryptids brought me into this and collecting brought me in, I have fun opening Wilderness. I have fun opening. I've really, it had the dragons. My issue with that set isn't like the design or the colors, but it was like, oh, this is everywhere. We didn't know it was going to be everywhere. We didn't know what the print run, how that was going to impact. And I'll let you go on because I think your opinion is the popular one, but I was going to throw in like, I do think the set's sick.
Real quick, I see people in the chat saying Nightfall can be mapped. I think Sean is in the chat. You can ask Sean. We used to test it all the time. And you can map the packs based off the full art pack. I kid you not. You can with Nightfall, but either way, Wilderness for sure. Orbs and sigils.
Yeah.
Boom. Then we have UFO. Now UFO was along the same lines, but I also think that there's a little bit of UFO. It didn't have a lot of oomph to it. Again, sigil heavy. It came out at a good time right after Caster Cup. It led into the summertime, but overall, it just was a little bit of iffier of a set, if that's even a word. And then we go into, so after UFO, we have Seance. We already know mapping was terrible for that. You can either have a box full of like 9 possessed aura or a box with nothing. And then you go into,
Well, and then that hurts the partners, and that hurts like box sales, because it's like, are you going to take a risk buying that box, even if you get a good full hollow box? And like, if that wasn't mapped, like those are good chases. I think that was the first time we saw real strong, with those scratch, Lady Luck, all of that with the chains. There was potential there, but then we saw what happened.
And it was a good rollout. I'll say that at the Comic-Cons, them dropping, they had Seance early at the Comic-Cons. at New York Comic Con, and then they backdoored at San Diego, or they had it at San Diego, and then backdoored or at least spoiled it. They had spoiler packs at San Diego, or no, Long Beach Comic Con, and then backdoored at New York Comic Con with the actual boxes and like seeing it, and it was cool. They had a really good rollout for it. It just didn't deliver with the actual, you know, I think the spell books were a little bit better, but the boxes were, I don't know, abysmal. Native, oh man, Native was a good set. That was the one that was getting that was beautiful. From the products were good, enough hits. The power creep was a little steep, but it was still good. They had all the momentum going into it, and then nothing to follow up behind it. And now you have Chromie, which is rushed. I mean, I don't think it's
play tested.
Wasn't play tested.
Doesn't look play tested to me based on reading those cards. And that so I feel like Native was such a high point to kick the year off of, because we're like, all right, if this is what we're dealing with, because I think a lot of us saw the potential in Seance if there hadn't been the hiccups, but you see kind of that upward potential between the design, even the artwork, going from Seance to then Native, which like worked. And I was excited for War in the Summer, real excited for War in the Summer.
And then they layered it onto with the streamer kits, because then it was like spoiling War, and you had like the good and the evil side, and it was like, this is gonna be great. I was like, oh, Tormentic, he's gonna get a lot. That was gonna have a lot of lore material. So I think that it was gonna move everything in a really good way into the summer. And then it was just like,
Bagheera and Moldy. I agree. Kuromi is not a core set though.
100 cards, and then even the pool rates are tough. And then just because it's so little, there's such a little amount of cards that reverse holo is just like lackluster. You're like,
Well, and so we're going to talk about partners now, but like, I feel for you guys with I just saw boxes for $65 today, $75 a few days ago. That's going to be a whole topic of discussion, of just the partners experience, with MetaZoo, but
for sure. With us going through this history, there hasn't really been much of a release without there being a delay or some type of, I won't say screw up, but some type of like logistical failure with how the product comes out. And that's no like exaggeration. It's like every set has been something wrong. And at this point, it's a Kickstarter. It's only a couple years old. No. At this point, I heard that, Mike posted that MetaZoo made $50 million. Like, hey, we can pay for some people, some logistical experts, somebody to, go to the warehouses, do some quality control. But overall, like, something's got to change. Something's got to happen. And it's a little bit too long, a little bit too long into the MetaZoo. Too late in the MetaZoo history.
That'll be the end of the stream. We're going to be like, is there row 4 or what's going on? But yeah, so for and then the last 6 months, and this is something that I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory. It doesn't seem like it. We've observed with towers, is we don't get paid, and then a mini set drops. We don't know what cards are in the mini set. The mini set's very FOMO oriented. And you look at like, what's a mini set we knew was coming? The Magic 30 parody set. I love the idea of that. I love April Fool's set, like Magic Cast last year. I had a great time with that. But then it comes out. We know it's out. It had no power, so people didn't really care about it. And now it's just like, okay, we didn't get paid. Oh, but there's a little drop there. And hopefully the people who, did you get paid? Are you going to get paid off this? Are you going to buy back into this? And that's just happened over and over, down to disclosure, down to SCP is not even a full set anymore. It's a part 1 of 3. We'll see, especially with all of the artists that were just lost. We keep seeing this, and also where it seems like things aren't being tested as well. If you didn't get that disclosure 1, like, how are you going to get that UFO? How are you going to get those grays if that's something you're trying to play? And we don't know all of the stuff that's coming out now. Is it going to be good? Because they're mystery products. And so if you buy into them and you're someone, even if you like to resell, that is part, especially after your first year, when a lot of the people who are just in it for, what's the like tendies or whatever, bounce out the game. You need those collectors who are just there to resell so that you can get the product, because something like Disclosure is only available for like a day. So you need someone who is there. but then you don't know if that's going to be valuable or not, especially where like most the cards are dropping. And so, yeah, with all of that, it's just like, what do you do? What do you, it almost feels like a gamble. Cause even like, well, and then going back to my initial point, we wouldn't get paid for a tower. This set would drop, and then we'd get paid for a tower. We haven't been paid for Dark Tower yet. That was a couple months ago. And a couple sets have dropped, and we haven't been paid for Dark Tower. And so it's like, is this what are? And this is where we don't even need to speculate. But if we were to speculate, it's like, are you guys just churning out? Okay, we got 10 cards, good. Let's sell them. Let's make some money. We haven't paid, we haven't put in the order for the thing that came out or that we sold 6 months ago.
And
now
the delays are getting longer. Of us.
Well, because it's like, I get the struggle there, but like that doesn't help us as players. That doesn't help MetaZoo as a company. If they're just trying to like, okay, sell this so we can pay the players. It's like, you guys made that 50,000 price pool,
This is what you said. These aren't my words. These are what y'all said. Yeah. And we're gonna get into the competitive side at the very end of our big three. We're still on the
collectors. The collectors. Now I think we can go into LGSs and how that ties in.
But the last little point for the collectors real quick was, I think that, again, maybe you might not advocate for the prize pool, or you might not advocate, like, maybe you don't really relate to the LGS, but the concerns should concern you. Like, these problems affect you, because if you don't have the players keeping the floor of the singles moving along because they want to fill out decks or anything like that, then that makes your collection go down and go to zero. If you don't have LGSs with product and people buying it from them, then there's not going to be a healthy level of demand. So everybody has something to lose in this situation. And how I conclude with the collectors is that just because you might not justify the prize pool or even some of the woes that LGSs have, I think it still affects you, and it would behoove you to maybe champion that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So going into LGSs, when you think of like the LGS, for one, like LGSs, while MetaZoo is kind of an experiment with like an online TCG, and now you have some coming out that are just doing that, there was a big thing on like, let's make partner stores. You're going to be able to buy MetaZoo locally. You're going to be able to, participate in tournaments and become a professional player. And so when you look at LGS, it's like you need product. So you need a store that's going to carry that. You need a reason to buy that product, which is usually going to be a constructed event, which will feed into, the next pillar of competitive. You need a good relationship with your partners. You need a reputation that's going to allow you to get that, product and allow LGSs to take a chance on you. And knowing that, like with the new card game or an indie card game, that LGS is taking a risk. Like they are taking a chance on you. And if you mistreat them, it's just, that hurts. That hurts a lot. Like
I would say the selling, like sometimes I think that it's cool that you might spoil or break the product a little bit early for people to get, but I think that we've saw this a couple times now where certain individuals, maybe certain popular individuals, would have product before. So I'll say at Orlando Collecticon, people were streaming Wilderness, and that was when that whole Breaking Street date fiasco popped off. But there were certain people who were given the product by the powers that be. Also at
New York, to fill you in, you're expected to sell at MSRP if you're a partner,
right? And so you can sell packs, but you can sell packs on whatnot for exorbitant amounts of money. So especially if you get the opportunity to have it early. So there's that opportunity. That's hurting the LGSs and the partners a little bit. Yeah. Selling product at New York Comic-Con, you could buy Seance early, and and
get a promo card with it.
And people were doing that. I mean, individuals are buying Nightfall. I remember New York Comic-Con when Nightfall came out. To get the ticket itself to buy Nightfall was $125. Like that's how much you had to pay to even have a chance to buy an actual box. So I think that it hurts LGSs and partners just because it makes them not believe, and a lot of them are within the Kickstarter TCG space, some of them aren't as established. Some of them are, beginners. Some of them are trying to figure out their way in terms of marketing and strategy and, the business savvy. And so when you burn them in these ways where they're holding on to products that you're selling or you're giving to people, or you're kind of, undercutting them in a way, it makes it tough to believe. It makes it tough for them to trust you. And, it comes across as not necessarily in the best, I guess, and not in bad faith, but it's definitely not with good intentions all the time. Sometimes, right. It might be better to go direct to consumer than it is work through a partner, but your partners are people that supported you, especially when not a lot of distributors and other people are, are helping Easton, you out.
I'd like, because you being out in Texas where it seems like you had more of kind of a robust local scene. What was your LGS experience like? And what did you see? What like was a sign of a healthy LGS relationship versus an unhealthy relationship? Because I'm more in the desert out here, so I could share that, but I want to like get the foundational base first.
I think I have a lot of experience with a lot of other card games, but we were the LGS, like Bat says, we were the LGS. So we can practice what was good. Well, we could, try best practices and figure out what doesn't work. But for the most part, I think that the caveat with that was you have to care about the people. At the core of it all, it's about caring about the people. But, being in the LGS game is about margins. It's not about, you're not getting rich off of being an LGS store owner. You're collecting over time. I get a win here, get a win here, get a win here. When I bring people in for a tournament, they buy some snacks and some sleeves for their decks. That's cool. Then, I'm taking a chance with MetaZoo because it's a risk. Because if you allot your money, if you leverage yourself into this game and you're not able to move product, then you're holding on to it. Then you have to sell it's a race to the bottom by all the partners and all the LGSs. And so again, when we say a rising tide raises all boats, if you have tournaments, you can have people who might buy packs, buy cards, buy starter decks, who might buy other little things in your LGS, as well as then, it blows up MetaZoo as a whole. So then more people come into your store. So I just think it was kind of like, that was the take that I got from the LGS is, most importantly, you have to be smart, especially with your margins. But most important is care about the people, but also be mindful of your margins, because as soon as product starts to decrease, then you're like, I just need to make my money back. And so you're willing to sell at a loss.
Yeah. I worked at an LGS before I moved down to Los Angeles, and I learned some stuff there. Like, for example, I'm like, we have all these booster packs nobody's buying. Why is it like Weiss Schwartz or something? And they're like, no, it's marketing. Like, having past packs that people aren't going to buy makes the newer ones more attractive. Like, there's a reason for this, as long as you're not out on floor space. But coming out here, my experience was I have a store right on the corner. I tried to talk to them about MetaZoo. And the guy was like kind of open at first, but Nightfall, because I was like, look, even if you buy 8 Nightfall boxes, you'll be able to sell them. Like, I promise you'll be able to sell them. But as it went very quickly, I think it was when Nightfall happened, Mike started hopping on YouTube comments. I remember seeing these comments and going on a bit of a rant talking about like loyal versus non-loyal LGS stores, which is the first time I really saw an effort to control and enforce behavior from one adult with a business to other adults with businesses. And the thing, if you're an LGS, for one, like, why you're in the business. You've got your things that feed you. You got your things that don't feed you. You got a new game on the ground and they're coming and they're like, kiss my feet. Like, I'm a big shot because my Kickstarter boxes are selling for 10K. Do this. But then they see the CEO behaving that way. They were turned off. They're like, absolutely, I'm not going to. And then LGS's talk. It was Black Diamond Games up in the Bay where I worked. Gary had a blog. He might still have the blog for a long time. All these LGS owners talk to each other. And, you make one person happy, they might tell other people about it. You make one person unhappy, they're going to go tell 10 people you made them unhappy. There's not that many LGSs. So, like, in Los Angeles, we had nothing. And then that poor store, they ended up trying to throw in, they got UFO and it's still sitting on the shelf over there. But so I would travel, I needed to qualify for Water Tower. So I found a store out, hour, like 60 miles away. My choices were 40 miles, but I had to drive through LA. 60 miles or 90 miles down to where Ricky's at, which like I wish that store was next to me. That store rules. But it was tough in SoCal. But I went to that store and I became friends. It was like a great store, but it was a little store, right? There was a minimum amount of flexibility where if a set went wrong or anything. And that's where I started getting kind of in touch with what was up, because they would sell what they had, people would buy it, but then like they got stuck with Seance. The relationship was tough because they're like, look, if I say anything, if I'm not appeasing MetaZoo, I'm in trouble. And meanwhile, I got other One Pieces out now. You know, Lorcana's coming out now. And so then that's another, and for their, you know, they loved their community and their community liked MetaZoo. And so they did what they could. But after what happened with Seance, they're like, I don't think I can afford to do native, which means now you're not necessarily getting new products. And we'll get into judges shortly, but then you need judges to do events. You need all, like, you watch it collapse around you for someone who wanted MetaZoo to work. They really wanted it, and all of that help came from the community. And so anytime I've went to qualify for a tower, I'm driving an hour to 2 hours to go get my product for native, which I didn't even think I was going to get. So I'd have something for Earth Tower. I drove 3 hours in traffic to get down to Ricky's shop, Cardboardia. And that was kind of the expectation, right? That was something that MetaZoo would talk about a lot in chat. And by MetaZoo, I mean, I think Andy at this point, of like, oh, the most dedicated players, you know, get to participate in the towers. You got to go back up these LGSs. But then it's like, okay, the onus is on us as players to go back up the LGSs. What are you doing to back up these LGSs?
Because there was no LGS kits. Like after you use your LGS kit for, you know, with SAM scripted cams and stuff like that, like what was going to be the follow-up afterwards. And I think that also, you know, leaves a sour taste in your mouth. One, anybody could really, you know, I think order one of those. I don't think that it was very like a hard process to order. So beyond that, I think that there wasn't a lot of support for the LGSs. And I take that a lot really personally, because after Caster Cup, again, the history of this it's basically also another story of every group has had to basically complain and criticize and throw a temper tantrum to get any type of movement. So let's just say with the LGSs, they needed some type of LGS kit to entice players to play after the fact of Caster Cup, because Caster Cup you had to play in a MetaZoo Play Network event, which is typically held at an LGS. So that was easy money to get people in.
Yeah.
What's the follow-up? So I was like, well, being an ambassador of the game, winning Caster Cup, I'm on podcasts trying to get everybody to, hey, you need to show up to your LGSs, you need to play and stuff like that. But after a while, it's like, bro, what are you going to do for the LGSs? What are you going to provide them to help continue players going on? It's the same way if we were playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And you have TP1 packs or anything like that keeps players going along with your regional and national and YCS roadmaps that happen along the way. But it's like they're just kind of left out to die. And then whenever storage didn't have product or it was a delay or something like that, then they couldn't give people anything. And there was also nothing to help entice the judges. If you're a judge, if you judge an event, thank you, because literally it's a thankless job. You barely get staff packs or anything. You barely get anything that can kind of like offset some of your costs, if there were any, outside of like maybe some reimbursements. It's a thankless job. So I definitely want to give you your kudos for that. But the LGSs and the metazoologists are kind of in tandem. There was nothing to help back them up and keep them inspired to keep eating people in. And so,
well, and even with like the idea of a medal event, because I feel like medal events are another thing that can keep you going. I know for some areas like medal events are common, but in California, we had to go to, I went to several towers to meet people, and it'd be like, who's from California? Who's around here? We got a Discord going so we could link NorCal and SoCal together. Then we started working hard with the LGSs. We managed to have a medal event at each of our 3 LGSs in SoCal that were carrying the game, which was great, right? That created bonding. There was the idea that you got this medal, you wanted to get another medal, or you were close, but you didn't quite get it. But then there's the issue of like, you need 24 people to sign up for this thing. 2 of those stores do not have room for 24 people.
Yeah.
And the other sign that I had going into it was going to this last Long Beach Collecticon, which is a few months ago. And there were like, I'm going to be generous and say there were 12 players for that versus what was Long Beach after Caster Cup. Like that was a pretty big tournament. Because that was the first event I ever went to. I went with my Gray's UFO WinCon deck because I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I just wanted to meet some people. And I really loved the gameplay. I love playing with people. But going from that to like 12 people, the only thing they have for sale is UFO and did they even have Seance? There's like Wilderness and UFO, and I think some Seance for sale there. And you know, shout out to Ted, hardest man working in the game, because he was like, I wish I had native. I wish I had this new stuff. I don't. And so you go there and I'm like, okay, if an official Collecticon tournament that's a metal tournament attracted 12 people, we need to lower this barrier down to 12 people. And we need, you know, be realistic with LGSs. What can they get in? Like, you can go on the MPN and get an idea of like how many active MetaZoo players are there. And this is where like adjustment comes in, but like, because metal events are really difficult to get for a lot of stores. So it's like, what's the incentive for players? There's no incentive to judge outside of being a saint, you know? And even then, like the judges we had, then there's this hand smacking of like, okay, if you're a judge and you weren't like preaching the good word of MetaZoo on top of it, like, it's like, okay, so you were doing free labor in the year 2023 when there's a lot of struggle, year 2022, and then you're not getting thanked and you can get in trouble because you're being noticed. And so I mean, I love our judges, and we did, like, once again, it comes down to the players. The players tried to throw in to help for these judges. Judges couldn't qualify for towers by judging. And that would, a big thing, you know, going back to that gala thing, a big thing with MetaZoo that MetaZoo really likes to do, and I don't know if they notice this, but this is something that can be improved upon, is putting one hand and the other hand and putting them at odds together. Like, okay, you want to go to Caster Cup, you can't judge. You want to go to a tower, you can't judge because you need to play, but someone's got to judge this game. You want to go to the gala, well, you better not drink because you got a tournament tomorrow. It's like, why aren't these things working in tandem together when we all need each other? A lot of times it's the same people. Or the idea of like, oh, New York Comic Con, you want to do Caster Cup? Well, we're going to have a roller coaster and a fair, and we're going to have promos like you've never seen before, the best promo rollout of all time. But if you're a Caster Cup, you can't do that.
Right.
You know, and there's situations like the Mothman Festival. I'm like, that makes sense because it's like you need to provide a Mothman Festival promo. And to give you context, Dark Tower was at Mothman. And if you were a player and you did well, you made it to day 2, you were not getting that Mothman promo
at all,
which is such a good promo. Like last year, it was a business card. This year, it's a card that you can attack someone and say like, okay, what's a card in your hand? Now I get to draw cards. It's, you know, and that was a frustration for people at Dark Tower. And even like later, they're like, okay, we're going to try to make sure top 32 gets these promos. I was in top 32. I don't know if you got a promo, Easton.
No.
Yeah, I got one for my kit. And then I went like the next day with some people to try to secure some players, some promos. And so that's like, okay, you have a deal with the festival. At the same time, that's indicative of this idea that you get to do this or you get to do this, which means now you're adding unnecessary frustration to an experience that should be purely positive.
And not to mention this is something that we've been dealing with since the beginning. So to again, this is a history lesson. Before we had any type of tower event, it was basically Caster Society came along as a need. So I was part of Caster Society and the team. Caster Society was born out of a want and a need to play competitively. We had amazing people. We had Steve working on the life point counter. Dom worked his ass off. I don't know if I can say it, but he worked super hard.
Yeah, we can curse. Yeah. I curse on my podcast.
He worked like a dog on the card database, pretty much everything. We had Chris doing all the business stuff. We had Bats was Discord, everything on the Discord.
Bats has answered at least 100 of my questions when I had no competitive scene and I was just trying to get some answers. Like,
right,
they're a legend.
And then you have like Arthur and myself. We were just putting things. We were, just being there, trying to help, trying to do stuff. uh, doing rip and chips, doing the MetaZoo Market Mondays. It was out of a lack of competition that we out of the shadows came. Oh, most important, Sean, artwork, the bundles, everything like that. Sean was killing on that. The biggest thing we did with Cash Society was because it came out of the lack of competition. So we're hosting events, we're hosting tournaments, we're hosting extravaganzas. So the first large event was Extravaganza 1, and that was kind of like the birthplace of the competitive scene, because before then MetaZoo was just having one-off tournaments at conventions that were very in line with what MetaZoo was traditionally doing. Like the week of, you find out that, oh, at this convention they're having a MetaZoo tournament, and you're like, I gotta get there because I gotta get
tickets.
there. Yeah. I gotta buy some tickets. And so that's how it was, how it kind of manifested. Then it got to, well, we need to play somewhere. We need some an official event. And so that's when Caster Cup rolled out. So Logan and I, if you ever watched Logan's stream, that's when we got on the live with Mike, and then he announced the Caster Cup, announced that you probably have to play in person. They rolled that out, and that was at the end of not of I guess 2 years ago. So before Caster Cup of
and
last
year. To give you an idea of the reach for the other half of this, I was not a competitive player at the time because I didn't have the resources, but I was watching this. Like, I have such a romantic view in my head of like what your Caster Society tournaments were like, because that's the only way we're getting meta decks out there. You guys had that whole snow, like the one in the church with the play mats and all that. I'm like, this is good work, because even if you weren't there like me, I got to like imagine what that was like. Mm-hmm. And, you know, not to get too cheesy, but like that's a huge driving force of this game. It's a cryptid game. We're in American culture. It's like, okay, you got these people, they're meeting up in a church to do this thing. Like that all leans towards kind of MetaZoo's mission statement. And so even as someone who wasn't around for this, like I was able to watch this and I did get something out of it, which I hope is like true of everything we're doing now for other people who haven't quite gotten into the game yet, but have been like very present.
For sure. And that led into the development of the MetaZoo, like organized play tournament stuff, because there was nothing before then. It was Caster Cup. Then all the effort and energy that went into Caster Cup, the months afterwards, it was nothing. And we were just like, hey, we've been playing in LGSs all this time to get qualified for Caster Cup, maybe take a month off, but we can get back into some competitive play, whether it be at Collecticons or something like that. And then it's just like everybody was basically screaming temper tantrums into them eventually like being like, okay, well, we'll have an event at Long Beach, a 5K. Good. That's perfect. We had a great attendance, great vibes. Long Beach it was just a vibe. It was a great opportunity, great time.
You had the convention. If you didn't make it to day 2, you wanted to go. You know, they had a lot of giveaway. They had the terrible tarot reading. That wasn't on MetaZoo. That was just, it wasn't terrible. The lady would spend 15 minutes with each person, which was too long. But but you had a lot of activities. Like it was almost like going to a fair or going to a festival where it's like you can do this, you can do that.
For sure. And it led into, then it was like Kansas City Collecticon, and then it ended with Denver Collecticon. And these are all, again, last minute tournaments. It wasn't, and this is for the whole year. It was nothing like, oh, we're planning, this is like the roadmap. It was Caster Cup in 2022. And then it was like, okay, well, what's the next steps? Then towards December, it was like, oh, we got the towers going on. And so we've always had to complain and yell, and it's like the squeaky wheel gets the oil or gets the grease. And it's never been like, oh, we're going to take the initiatives to set this stuff up. But this hurts, again, the LGSs, because nobody, after that, people started to die off and not play in LGS tournaments anymore because there's no reason to. And then again, it hurts the prices quite a bit. So I was just saying that just so you all know that there was like no competitive roadmaps, even to this day. Like we haven't had one that was started, broken out, and then completed all the way through the end.
Right. And that was all LGS player effort that went into that. And then even when when I went to Long Beach, that's where I met Fajir. That's where I met a lot of you people. Like and this is the thing, is everyone I talk to is just like, Fajir's great, Bats is great, these judges are great, like all of this is good. So it's like, what, Logan and Emilio, like that, what they're fun watch when they're commenting, like, what's going on here? Like, what's going on here? If everybody loves the players, if this is one of the most like productive, competitive communities you got out there, what are we doing? And then for the LGSs, it's interesting because my first time watching it just really fall apart was after Earth Tower, because we had our LGSs were doing like tower prep events. They would do their big qualifying tournaments where you had to follow whatever the rules of the tower, and then they'd have training tournaments. And I know mine weren't the only ones doing that. But then we get out of Earth Tower and there's no news. Like, at least coming out of Water Tower with Forest getting canceled, like, we knew that was communicated. And on top of that, we had, I forget your name, but there's a caster out there from Ryan Lander being like, there's no place that can host a tower here. I don't know what you guys are going to do. So it's like, I don't know if this was going to happen. Water Tower seemed like a lot of effort, but after Earth Tower, it's just like, is it lightning? It's lightning, right? Okay, let's prep
we were like,
lightning.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and then as soon as that didn't happen, it was just like, well, and on top of it being lightning, it's like, that's an accessible location.
Very accessible. And it was already said at a CollectiCon too, or
yeah, which a lot of people are going to go to anyways. And as soon as that fell through, for one, people were tired from towers, but yeah, we've all been tired from towers and like got home and started prepping for the next one if we weren't already doing that before. But the momentum's dead, because it's just like, okay. And so now you're not even going to your LGS, because your LGS, it's like everyone's tired. They're like, I don't know, I'm going to show up when I can just wait for the next tower.
And there's no new set.
There's no new set,
And so it just kind of like, that's what, to be fair.
And then it collapses. Like, to qualify for Water Tower, my like far away podunk LGS that I left the Metropolis for, we had like 20 people at that event that didn't fit in the store. We had to put some outside. For Dark Tower, the most anticipated tower all year at the Mothman Festival, JP had to, we had to have the store people be the tournament organizer. JP had to like not judge. We had to have one of the employees judge so we could sit down. So we had 4, so I could qualify for Dark Tower. Like, that shows such a fall off. And that was a place that had like regular events. Like, that was the most regular spot for MetaZoo, and that's just my experience. But and all of a sudden, once again, with no new sets, it's like, what's going on with these partners? It just feels like with the partners and with the stores, so much is expected of them, and they are held to a higher standard, which makes sense if you're incentivizing that. But if you're expecting them to take on this great financial burden and put in the advertising and get the player base together when there's not incentive beyond just playing MetaZoo.
No, there's a free promo. Don't forget, there's an incentive. Free promo.
Okay, if you had them, my one of my LGSs did.
No, you'll get gifted. You'll be like a supporter medal. You'll get like a bronze.
I can tell you, I have one supporter medal for all the medals events, because like
I'm talking about like just a general supporter medal. It's they're gonna make they'll for sure make one.
Yeah. Well, now that was just for the LGSs themselves, but it's like, that's for all the random promos and stuff they're doing. And that is like, here, I got some of my favorite promo drops happened in 2023. Like, you want to go positive for a second? I'm going to bust these out. Like, these little travel LGS dealios, like, those are pretty sick, nice. And it's like, okay, you did that. And then just like the Comic-Con where like they're leaning into the story, like, those are sick promos. That shows that there's also energy. You could be sending those to the stores. You can be trying to reinvigorate, like, where's Constructed? And Easton and I were talking about earlier, like, there's no incentive to play Constructed outside of prepping for Caster Cup. Nice. And then there's not, because there's not enough players to the point where you're keeping your deck secret, because you're like, I got to go win money.
Right.
To justify the New York and the Comic-Con and all of this. Like, it's not like a Magic or a Hearthstone where you can make money putting out decks and like working that with people. But for all that, it's like, okay, there's no incentive to do Constructed, and there's no new sets, which I would argue made towers work better, because like, if we were just doing Constructed all year off of native.
I mean, I'm looking at the chat and I was going to say Shadow LG. No, there hasn't been. But quick little caveat as well with that. I think that
Dr. Cards, we are going to publish this.
Yeah, we will. I think that another caveat is like, what is the deciding factor? Like, people, are you going to start to wake up? Because I think we're laying it out there in a way where it's like you can start connecting the dots. Because for me, the dots started to connect way beforehand, but for sure, whenever like, why are these towers getting like dropped off? Like, what's going on? Why isn't the leadership taking an initiative to take care of the partners in LGSs? Why aren't they taking care of the players? What's going on here to make everything like feel very rug pully in a way? And I think that's, to me, what I'm trying to drive home is I want everybody to start thinking here, not in a sense of like, oh, we want MetaZoo to fail or succeed. Yes, we do, but there has to be some huge changes. And on the LGS, because we're still on the competitor, I mean the partner LGS level, they failed on that aspect because they had so much momentum. Because CS, we kind of helped build and propel and move things along. We kind of guilt tripped them into having a major event, Caster Cup. Then after Caster Cup, there was nothing there. They had a couple of Collecticon tournaments, and then they said the towers were going to take place with Caster Cup began at the end of the year, and then that just fell off the face of the planet. So let's start putting these dots together. And
right, this is all for, once again, we're storytellers. This is all foreshadowing. Like, there's a reason we're doing this in the order, and when all that comes down to, it seems like we're ready to move to the next pillar, which is the competitive, which is where you and I are very at home. Like, we're big collectors. We're obviously very involved in LGS, as you in particular, but like competitive, that's where it's at right now. Mostly because, like, what sets do you have to buy? And so right now, the big, like, if you look at a lot of the energy, it does go into deck building. It goes into the towers, a tower every single month leading up to Caster Cup. We're going to have these tower casters. They're going to be like the Pokemon gym leaders, like, sick concept. Like, here's the thing. I made a podcast called Towers and MetaZoo podcast. So I obviously love the concept, and MetaZoo can be such a difficult game to sell to people, like just friends and stuff, because it's quite complex. But when I went and told people, like, oh, we have these like Pokemon Gym S tournaments, they're like, that's sick. And I'm like, and we have them in these locations that can be significant to cryptids. Like, there was advertising that could be done there. But so we talked about LGS and kind of like the constructed. Now we're going into like national competitive, like the people who are, those people MetaZoo talked about earlier on, like, they wanted people to be able to have that be their job. Like, they wanted pro MetaZoo players.
For sure. And this, again, we're storytelling, and so we're foreshadowing here. Now, we understand that there has been a changing of guard. Mm-hmm. Hey, Andy is now the leader, the head honcho, the big man on campus. But Mike was the one who said all this stuff. And it seems like there might be a disconnect. But even if that's the case, there have been things that were said and promises that were made that, MetaZoo as a company is, pretty responsible for, as well as, some of these sentiments were echoed by Andy and switching a guard. So people were saying, well, there's a change of leaders. Well, yeah, but let's think about it from that span. This is one I'm most passionate about because I've gone above and beyond trying to advocate, because I come from a marketing background. And so, just real quick, in like, when you think about neuromarketing, when you think about why you buy the things you buy, the things that you're loyal to, well, there's like a matrix between loyalty and cost when it comes to like these enthusiasts of these kind of like luxury items. So you might have your investors who have a lot of money, but they're not overly invest or overly loyal, because as soon as it starts to drop, or they are out of, they're starting to lose money, they might, sell off, or once they get close to the red line. LGSs are kind of half and half. They're kind of loyal. They're pretty loyal, but they also bring you in a lot of money, pretty good amount of money. And players where we don't bring you in nearly as much money, our value is within our word of mouth, but we're super, super loyal. So you see people going from coast to coast, flying, driving to God knows where they have us stationed in for a tournament. And so I'm really, really, passionate about that, because I know that there's like a level of loyalty that happens to the players, that they show a blind eye, or anybody who's loyal to a particular brand, that you might get stepped on. And so I think we're coming to you as like relatives, and this is more of a story of like, also be mindful and be observative of everything, not just like listen to your favorite person or listen to all the positives or all the negatives. Take it all in so you can make an informed decision, because this I felt really bad about, because I trusted, I had that screenshot of, saying that Cash Cup was going to be postponed and it was going to be at the end of the year. And I'm like, well, you told us that it was going to be at the end of the year and it didn't happen. So that's a lie. But hey, it is what it is. Or towers. We had a roadmap. We had everybody was hyped up. Everybody was building their decks, preparing, taking off vacation days, work days, doing all this stuff, allocating their resources to make their self. Like some people, I saw people was, hey, I can't come to this tower, but I can come to the Spirit Tower.
Yeah.
And they can't do that. Like, I'm so upset, because there's a lot of people that wanted to play, that wanted to take part of a tower experience, that didn't, because something is up.
Well, you got to pick and choose, right?
Yeah, you have to pick and choose.
Most people, like, you are a pro competitive player. It makes sense for you to go to those things. For me, I'm like, I need a hobby this year. And even then, I was only going to go to 3 towers. My plan was to go to Water Tower, Forest Tower, and Dark Tower, because I was like, you usually won't get me to travel for like a competitive event or a cryptid festival, but if you combine them, then I go to Water Tower and it's all over, because I'm like, I got to go to as many of these things as possible. But initially, like, I didn't think I'd be able to qualify for Earth Tower, but I got an email and they're like, hey, no, it's cool. And so looking at that, and this is what I've said on the podcast all the time. I'm like, look, I am in a lucky, very unusual situation for my life where I can go to all these, and I'm going to try to bring them home to you. I'm going to try to get you set up for success. Cause we have like MetaTalk, we have you guys, there's a lot of good resources for like high level competitive play. Caster Society is putting out those articles for a long time. Whereas for me, I'm like, I spent a lot of time, and Bats was my main resource. And so I want to try to do something to help this. And when you get all that together, and then, we had, I think I saw Guts in there, was just setting up for Spirit Tower all year, and there's no Spirit Tower. And we would have thought that would be an easy one, because that's at Long Beach, already extremely successful the year before.
Now we're here. And so again, this isn't like some type of like coping, like, yes, we know, but you're some of your most loyal people. So whenever, like with that like loyalty matrix, whenever you wrong them, they turn, there's like a level of vitriol that comes with this. And people have that dark arc where they're just like, oh, MetaZoo's the worst. And it might not necessarily be it might be the competitive thing. It might be you talked about somebody in the main chat, or you banned them, or you muted them. And these are constant issues that people are having, that, is I guess developing an unsafe space as far as a TCG. Like, people are upset and angry for these very reasons. And I'm here.
And the only place they have to vent that is private Discords.
Or a burner.
You're not keeping that, or a burner. You're not keeping that out in the open. You're not allowing like, hey, let's have productive conversation for an hour, right? Like, we want to hear grievances. We want to do that. But let's do like a little bit of a timeline. So we go, like, when did we know there was going to be a Water Tower? Like, I remember
this was December.
I remember watching like you and Logan and them on a like, what's going on with MetaZoo? Like, hey, what's going on? Like, speculating for towers for like 4 or 5 months throughout episodes on MetaTalk. And so we knew in December Water Tower is going to happen. And it did, right? And we knew like the format, I think they gave us like a couple weeks before. But it seemed like there was prep time. Ohio was kind of a weird place to get to, but like you could, I got my room for like $50 and they upgraded me because there's just no one in that town during February. But then we come out of water, and to tie in once again, some collectors, some LGS info. When we went there, it was like, okay, even if you're not like a high-end competitive player, but you do like to collect, we're going to have tower packs at Water Tower, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be a hot item. Like that, I'll be real, like that got me 30% in the door was the tower packs. And then we're going to have these like envelopes, the ambassador envelopes. We're doing that for sure at this thing. I know several people from SoCal that only went to the event for those because they're more on the marketing side. However, we went there, and while we're playing, they dropped that full hollow aura, one of the sickest cards they've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
They gave, like, we knew there was going to be a tower card, but we got the generic tower card. And then we got the beginnings card. And so it's like, these were sick. Like, and we got the dice. It's like, why did you overpromise tower packs, envelopes, when this is sick? Like, I actually brought these out because this is something that not everyone's on board with, but something that I think that is smart for MetaZoo's brand that they do try to lean into. With things like the manga, the storyline is like, I feel like you got to sell like, hey, we're America, this cryptids. Like these little, you know, getting these like really high quality pins as like memorabilia. Like getting these dice, people really liked these dice. Where's the water symbol? And then the plushes, a lot of people are like, oh, it should be a Frogman plush. But I was like, if you're going to build your brand, you can't just
have one or two main.
I think at MCU with Guardians of the Galaxy, nobody knew or cared about Guardians of the Galaxy, and that movie dropped, and it was like everyone's favorite movie. You got to, you know, make Iowa Dragon your hot shot. You got to make Agua your hot shot. Like, you got to call some of your shots and tell your player. You got to let your players be like, we love Frogman. So that's kind of the like boss of the water tower. But then for what's living around it, I loved seeing Pink Mess. Like those are for the vibe that they wanted to do of like, oh, the water tower in world is in Southern Ohio. Like, and here is a mascot from there. And here is this playmat that depicts what's going on around you. And you're in this lodge, you know. Doing all of that, I think, was good for kind of the ambiance, and maybe a competitive player doesn't care, or a collector, you know, seller only cares and knows much. But for a lot of people that I think the game's trying to appeal to, and that's kind of where I came from before I got sucked into, you know, I got corrupted by Herman and them into the competitive world. Like those were things that I think were wins going into it. And it's like, if you just did that, right, if you didn't overpromise, and going into overpromising. So I felt like Water Tower is a pretty big success. I had a great time there. Changed my whole year.
It got everybody's excitement for towers that much more. So everybody's like, oh, even if it's in Rylander, Wisconsin, I'm going to make my way and I'm going to find a way to get there, even if I have to drive like a tank or something to get there. But
it supported so many teams like either bolstered their numbers or went like more hardcore because it helped, like, you have a month to prepare. Let's get these card pools together. You know, those were the good, I think, things going into it. And then even after Water Tower, I think it was pretty quick that like Forest Tower, we knew that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, it was like a couple of weeks afterwards, and you're like, oh, well, the trip, everybody's like, tickets there is like $700, and you got to like be on the other side of the state, and it's like not going to work.
We saw Fajir and everybody. It's like, we're tired, you know, it's just like, okay. And this is going to let them do the rest of these without a hitch. It's going to let us be announced more, you know, in advance. We're going to have locations that don't cost $800 to get to a podunk town. No, and I say podunk with love.
It was fun being there.
Yeah. Like we're going to set up, like, I think we're pretty optimistic going in, right, with the grain of salt you always have when you're dealing with MetaZoo if you're paying attention. But then we go with Earth Tower and it's like, we don't know anything, and we don't know anything, and we don't know anything. And there's a gala now. Okay, there's a gala, going back to the start of the stream, and we don't know anything with the gala, and not everyone can even go to the gala. And so there's like this FOMO for the gala, but then when you're there, you're like, why am I here? You know. And the tower itself, like, I liked the location because I'm from the desert, so the heat didn't bother me, and also it was like 2 blocks away from my buddy's place. But I also like know New York. I knew how to use the subway. It cost me like $5 to get around, whereas a lot of y'all were up in Manhattan. I don't even know how much those Ubers were.
It was wild. The one, oh, it's gonna be in Brooklyn. Oh, it could in. I'm like, well, I'm from Texas, so I'm like upper Brooklyn, lower Brooklyn. I'm thinking like, oh, 13 miles. 13 miles in Texas is 5 minutes, but there it's like 45. And so I think that's a component to it. and it also leads into the lack of trust, because it's like pulling like a rose petal. It's like each event we're starting to like, I'm not going to get the information. I'm about to learn last minute. Is the cards coming out, this, that, and the third. And then you layer on top, like with Earth Tower, you have native
drop-in. Are you going to be able to get native? So now this is a more exclusive event, which put a pin in that with accessibility, right? Because that's
what they
recently. That's going to be towards the end of the stream, is accessibility. Put it on. It's like, and I was like, hey, what's up with native? And that was a big part. That was the most involved deck tech I did for the podcast, because I was like, look, I can do a full deck build because I know I'm not going to have native, which means that's going to hinder my performance at this tower. So I'm just going to like publicly walk you through what I'm doing to build decks. And because I knew that, I ended up getting my hand on some, which really changed the deck and changed the game for me. But like, all of these things are kind of going together, and it's all rhyming with a lot of what we've experienced with MetaZoo before. And we go off the high of that water tower into Earth Tower. And I think Earth the Tower is my favorite format of the towers. Like, looking back, I really liked kind of how it all played out. I like New York City. But even then, I had to go around, like, it was players, because they showed the pictures, and a lot of people were not excited about the outside of this venue because they didn't know how safe the area was. Whereas I was able to go in there. I'm like, yo, my buddy walks around at night till 4 a.m. every night going to bars. Like, this place is well on the way to gentrification. This is like an art scene. Like, you have nothing to worry about.
A museum was right. Art museum was.
I was the one who was running around telling people that, like, hey, by the way, like, you're gonna be fine here. And then, Earth Tower happens. And then that's when the whole, are we going to get paid? Are we going to get paid? Are we going to get paid?
Again, that's when you're like Metal Gear Solid, like alert. Mm-hmm. It starts to, for me, it was.
And we mentioned before, if any of you guys watch or read Hunter x Hunter, how at the very start of Hunter x Hunter, to get the Hunter exams, it's like, all right, you got to apply, and then you got to go figure out where it is, and then you got to jump through all these hoops to get there, and then you got to be ready to zig when you're going to zag and all of that. And while that's kind of funny in hindsight, it's like, that's what we're doing to get to these events. And that's not part of the sales pitch. They're not saying, hey, we're going to have like a scavenger hunt, and anyone who makes it there, it's like a secret show, secret tournament.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, like, do they care about us? Like, we're like an important vertical, we're an important pillar in the ecosystem. I mean, I would argue that, the player base keeps the floor as high as possible, because again, healthy singles movement, healthy LGS participation helps everybody within this ecosystem. So yeah. I'm just like, do they care? Maybe they don't, because
that's to call out Philip's comment. It was frustrating knowing we qualified for them as top 32 Caster Cup and still not having information to plan for it.
Exactly. Like, nobody had any information on these events, and so it's like, did you even plan for this, or did you just throw it out there?
Yeah. Well, and I'll be transparent with the money, right? I'm flying across the country. And so that's going to be at least $500, right? Mm-hmm. And then you got to find a place to stay in. I was lucky in that I have a place to crash, but you're looking at least $500 staying there. Then you're looking at native product, right? If you're trying to be competitive at this scene, you're probably dropping $600 to $800.
You need some boxes to get the fusions.
Yeah, I got lucky in that, like, notice I keep saying I got lucky. Like, I put in so much work into prepping for that tournament, which you guys heard on the podcast if you listen to it. And so it worked out for me in that I got 2 fusions, and they're 2 spirit fusions. So I designed my whole deck around that. But like that was on the fritz, and that costs money. That costs a lot of time to do that. And that's part of being competitive that I don't think we can necessarily complain about, is there is that cost benefit analysis of like, what cards do I need? How am I going to obtain those cards? Am I going to want money? Like, how am I going to get my money back for this? Or am I just doing this as like a vacation trip? Looking at all of that, but it's like, that's at the best of times, you're booking that travel, you're paying these things, you're trying to like analyze all this, because it could be a week before and something comes out. Now everyone's changing their decks. We're not at the best of times. We're at this whole, like, we don't know where this is going to happen. We don't know what city this is going to happen, like all of that. And then we get back from Earth Tower. And we got like, all right, Lightning Tower. I knew some of you talking about people were waiting. I know so many people were fired up. Shout out to Ricky, who's like, I love Lightning Mirror matches. I'm gonna like, Ricky is not like big on deck building, like was building Lightning decks.
The whole
And that was going to
time.
be at a big city that was not super expensive. So we're looking forward to that. And like, it's like, cool. You had 2 months to set up for Earth Tower. Now there's got to be a system because like you didn't have a Collecticon in New York City. You did have one in Kansas City. You did have one in Texas. Like, you know what it is to run a tournament here.
And it's like, and you've had effectively like a couple of competitive seasons going into this, so you should have this together. Like, what's going on with the leadership? What's going on with what do we not have enough resources? Because do you need to hire a contractor? Do you need to hire an event planner? Like, maybe why is everybody doing everything? I mean,
well, it seems like you needed two teams. You needed two Fijiers. You needed two teams to alternate.
Yeah,
to set these events up, because like those people were being worked to the bone, and it just at so many times this company and this game feels frail, even though the people making it happen are so strong because they're a point of failure. It's like if Fijier falls over, what happens? What happens?
If Ted
wasn't there, falls over, what happens? You know, you're not when you have someone like that. You have someone who's both putting in the work and passionate, and they're not getting paid what they should be getting paid for it. You're grateful to them, and then you build off of them. Same thing with like a Kickstarter, right? You have the Kickstarter that gets you stuff, and now it's your job to put in the work to make sure that your product's good so you can sustain yourself. And instead, it was just like, all right, now we're just going to keep running. I mean, and Ted seems like an invincible human being. But even doing like Water Tower to Earth Tower, you could tell there was some exhaustion. There was like, okay, how is this all going to go? Then you add the gala to it, which I keep bringing up. And then after that, everything falls apart.
Yeah, and it's like, why are y'all still bootstrapped? Again, Mike said that $50 million. I ain't forgot that. Look, I might not tell you a joke, but I ain't gonna tell you a lie. That man said $50 million. Now I don't know if it's gross or net, but $50 million is a lot. Is $50 million? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of cheddar.
As we established before, that's not money they're putting into LGSs, into local play. We've heard like time and time. I saw someone mention in chat, you could have made the tower a 15K, a 20K, and then put that extra 30K into local stores, into events. Like, hey, here's this store. You've been good to us. Here, we're letting you do a 1K. Like, here's a check. But that's not what I'm not complaining about the 50K towers. It's just like, that's what you told us, and that's what we expect.
This is what you told us. This is what you told us.
If you were like, if you were like, hey, we're getting ready for Flame Tower. We're going to be real. We got a couple more in these at this budget going into 2024. We got to do like 20K towers. None of us would be crying.
We understand that there's like there's an inflated cost when you're trying to emerge into a market. So when you're trying to take market share, you don't just do it quietly. You have we have a $1 million tournament or something like that, and you might do that. Maybe you have that allocated. So they said 1.25 for this one, and then they had said 400,000 for the towers, but cut it to 200,000 because of the cancellations. So you should have it budgeted where you're spending 1.5, maybe a little bit more for the logistics and the events and stuff like that. But when you do a cost analysis, you're also thinking about, players, how long is the average life cycle of a player? Well, most commonly they've done analysis on that, and that's like 2 to 3 years is your average player life cycle. But the biggest multiplier that most players have is that they have word of mouth. Whereas investors in a lot of LGSs, they're not necessarily incentivized to be like, hey, you should play this game. They might like have events, but it's the players that bring in other people, other collectors, and then the sheer number of individuals playing the game will again raise the prices and stuff like that.
And how are you gonna, even if you're a player who's trying to recruit, like how are you gonna bring new people on where you're like, hey, we should go to this thing. I don't know the format. I don't know where it's gonna happen. I don't know what the Terra is. I gotta explain to you what Terra even means in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, because I was prepping for Dark Tower, and then they were like, all right, we're not doing ×3, but we are gonna let you draw out your whole deck. It's like, all right, and it's not like the prep for that hurt because now I know the cards, but it's like, all right, we're starting over. Got 2 weeks. We're starting over from scratch, which incentivizes them like players like you and me, where we got solid teams, we got the experience, we got a system in place. Like Legion of Doom, we're putting in that 5 days a week of like on there training, one-on-ones, whole team on whole team. When we weren't training, our deck builders were going hard on this. We're doing analysis. We're reading books for it. That was not my experience for Water Tower. Water Tower is like, Ultima Haha looks real dope. Like, I'm gonna come swinging at people with Ultima Haha. Yeah. And once again, so like I made money this year playing MetaZoo. That is can only be true of so many people. And that was I had the support. So it's just like, this goes into the 1%er. I'm like, okay, I feel like now I started from the bottom with Water Tower, but now it's like, I'm in the 1%. I can travel to these things. I've made some money. I can justify investing in this. And I have a team to back me up and for me to back them up to get more practice in. But if you're most of the players who are going to enjoy a tower, you got to do that solo. Like, how are you going to bring people in? And that was where, the joke of like, okay, MetaZoo has 300 competitive players. It's like, why didn't that balloon? Why couldn't I talk people to trying to win $50,000?
Yeah, it would have easily tripled if there was a plan after Caster Cup. They had the largest attendees at Caster Cup. They had over 300 players at Caster Cup. The issue is there was nothing to follow up on. After that, it was like a huge layoff. We had a couple Collecticon tournaments, and then it went into December. Oh, there's towers. Now the tower, like, you had such a huge buzz. I'm confident that if they would have maybe rolled out towers after Caster Cup, or maybe even had something along the lines of like maybe like a regionals, like a Yu-Gi-Oh system where there's regionals, they probably would have at least doubled or tripled their momentum from Caster Cup into the following Caster Cup. But at the end of the day, y'all told me we was gonna play in November at Caster Cup in New York at the big show
all year.
All year. You split me, bro. I ain't forgot it. Now, I'm getting this off my chest. Y'all gaslit the players because we told you. We argued. I remember people getting banned and muted and, ostracized because they said, hey, y'all, Mike was like, yeah, we thinking about Caster Cup. Everybody's like, no, leave me alone. And then what happens? People I got a private message because of some people from on my team were talking. I remember just being very adamant that it's not the best thing for the community, for their pocketbooks, because we all know that you gotta buy a pass for that. Everybody's like, well, you could buy a 1-day pass or this or that. No, it sells out immediately. It's a pain to get to. I've done it multiple times. No,
and not only that, I'm like, how are they gonna have this tournament in New York Comic Con? Does not care about MetaZoo. You cannot tell me that New York Comic Con cares about MetaZoo. How are you gonna have this giant tournament there that's gonna have at least a $500 entry just on tickets? And that's something Herman said I want to highlight is we were proud to introduce them to the game, but not the company, which keeps you people out. And I also want to shout out, I see Markers. I remember when Markers was like the first like content creator. MetaZoo's like, here's this medal we're going to hand for exceptional like gameplay analysis. Markers used that platform MetaZoo gave them to be like, hey, we need literally anything for the judges. You're not showing up for judges. Now Markers making Hearthstone content, and happily. But it's like you pointed out that resource. You didn't support or listen to that resource. That's another judge out of the way. And that person was speaking for the people. He wasn't trying to hurt MetaZoo when he said, hey, you need to support judges so we can get more MZOs in here. Like, and so, and with all of that, my gamble, because once again, this goes back to Hunter x Hunter. I was gambling all year. I was like, I think, when people are like, I don't know which towers are happening, I'm like, if any tower's happening for the rest of the year, it's going to be Dark Tower because it's going to be Mothman Festival. And then that happened. I was gambling with New York Comic Con. I'm like, there's no way that's happening in Comic Con. That's going to happen outside of Comic Con. Like the hotels, all of that. And, that didn't end up happening, but that gamble paid off for me. I was about to buy, I was like, guys, I'm not buying second rate tickets until Monday. I'm like, I'm waiting through this weekend. I know that'll make it more expensive, but like, well, and this gets into the price, right? It's already expensive being a competitive player.
We told you.
Great risk, great reward, right? And so that's not on MetaZoo, but what is on MetaZoo is the lack of communication costs us a lot of money. And while that's not MetaZoo's responsibility, that does mean like, what's the likelihood we're going to show up? What's the like, am I buying product right now? Absolutely not. Why am I not buying product? Because I don't know when it's going to show up. I don't know how I'm going to use it. And I'm resentful of the fact that I've spent all this money that I can't do, right? That can simmer down, but it's just like, I'm playing realistic. Like, you're a business. I'm going to treat you like a business right now, where I was treating you, as like a source of my hobby. And it's always a decision you have to make. But between all of that, it's just like, I'm not going to buy New York I'll buy tickets to go to New York. Cause I was once again, I was going to stay there for 2 weeks outside of, Caster Cup, just cause I got buddies there. But I was like, this is going to be bad for people. And I will say, I know people who could not afford to get the redeemable tickets, but did put in the work and the financials, who could barely afford it. And then now they're out money.
That's the thing, is
they're out money because you canceled this event. You didn't tell us you were going to cancel this event. You said all year, like, and then that was the thing all year. Andy's like, hey, only the most dedicated are going to go to Caster Cup. Like, oh, you don't want to buy a New York Comic-Con ticket? You do need one. You don't need one, blah, 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 blah. We told you. Yeah. It's like, only the most dedicated are going to go there. And for us who were like, by this point, I was deep in the competitive scene. It's like, all right, so I'm going to be duking it out with 120,000 people who are going to be able to qualify, have gone to a tower, and afford all this New York nonsense to win 1.5 billion. Okay, this is good for me. I don't think this is good for your game. And then to go around and talk about, well, I have the screenshot anywhere. I don't care to bring it up, but like talking about fickle players who are going to buy tickets last minute. And then when they're going to cancel, we didn't tell you to buy tickets. There's a reason this stream is called Gaslight, Gatekeep, MetaZoo. Like,
because they gaslit us up. Boys sent us down. The biggest thing was the excuses that was following that. We're trying to make it more accessible for everybody to come to the event. We're trying to make sure that everybody is becoming of a MetaZoo event and it's big enough to really grasp the entirety of what MetaZoo is. You are lying to us.
Absolutely not.
I'm gonna hold you accountable. Maybe some other people might turn a blind eye, but nope. You told me in the chat, right? He told us all that it's gonna be in New York. You're gonna have to be there. He wouldn't market it
every month when there's a struggle at the tower. Is Caster Cup happening? Every single time. Absolutely, Caster Cup's happening. Absolutely, Caster Cup's happening. And then even then, they knew, and this is where I go. I always know. I come from a very particular religion that's very good at training. I'm not in it anymore, but good at training people to do mental gymnastics. I always know what MetaZoo is going to say, because MetaZoo is going to say whatever makes them look good in the moment, whatever is going to make their critics look stupid in the moment. Planning on nobody's going to record history, right? That's what that requires. And so as soon as they're like, Caster Cup's not happening, I was like, well, Caster Cup would be in 2 weeks, so that's smart. I knew it wasn't happening that year. They knew it wasn't happening that year.
They could have just told us.
It's October. You're going to have it in November. You have 3 weeks to prep a whole ass Caster Cup, and Thanksgiving's happening, and travel's going to be a nightmare. Or are you going to do it in December when we have Christmas and blizzards and the weather in the United States is crazier and more unpredictable every year? Like, it's like, no, you know that. And then you know that you're going to be relying on Cryptid Clash. And then you're like, okay, we want to use Cryptid Clash as a setup for this. And Cryptid Clash isn't going to be ready till later. And then you're going to be like, hey, war. Well, we want to have it after war. So we're going to tell you, oh, actually, we think it's best to have it. It's like, no, even if you're correct. Like, I think accessibility is incredibly important. And a lot of us have fought for accessibility, which is why I resent using accessibility as a cudgel against your customers and your loyal players. And like, think of all the disabled people we've tried to advocate for. All the people who do not have endless pocketbooks, right? And time, no, only the most dedicated players, or, oh, we're going to ignore this, or, oh, you know, whatever else. And now it's accessibility. They're correct to talk about accessibility, but that's gaslighting, right? When we talk about accessibility, you know where we're coming from. MetaZoo's doing it because it makes us, it covers their ass, or it tries to cover their ass, except for everyone's onto it. And like the amount of arrogance required to, and it's just bad business sense to not realize that everyone's in some kind of Discord chat. Everyone's seen this happen over and over again. So like, it's like having the friend who's just really unreliable and lies to you all the time. They're going to lie and you're like, okay, like it doesn't even like cut you that deep because you're just like, that's just how that person goes. It's not what you want out of a customer.
And it's different if it's a friend, but it's a business.
It's a business.
And so I guess, again, to hammer this point home, again, start connecting the dots. Okay, so canceling towers, pre-ordering, you know, out of the wazoo, random shock drops.
Nothing shock drops that you don't know what's going to be in there.
What's going to be in there.
And then when it's heat, like disclosure, you go, all the loyal customers bought the heat, but then your next one's a dud. Like, no risk to MetaZoo, all risk to you.
All risk to you. Then again, we already covered canceling half the towers. So they saved at least 200K on that. We just gonna 200K. Yep. Then we have the shock drops. All those are sporadic and out the wazoo. Then you go into Caster Cup. Now, Andy just did a drive-by announcement. That man didn't tell us, put an announcement, because he can add everybody. This man's fingers
I saw through Argos of all people. Argos put that as an announcement. Thank you, Argos.
Yeah, his fingers aren't broken, because there's nothing wrong with his fingers, because he can add everybody when there's a delay or something like that, or not even when there's a delay. Forget that. But he can add us at everybody. He just said, in the chat, we think it's not, well, I mean, it's not in the best time or anything like that. No, you told us a while back, but regardless, everybody's saying, hey, they shouldn't have had it because the prize pool was too much. Cool. You can relay that. And then you can say, let's cut it back or something like that. I mean, from a PR perspective, not having it in general is far worse than you cutting it back. Because everybody knows that if you cancel it and you don't allocate that money from the Caster Cup to the next Caster Cup, if you postpone and move it later, then you're going to have the same issues. I'm going to still question you. I'm like, well, what happened to the money that was from the canceled towers and the canceled Caster Cup? So overall, we're just setting the groundwork for, eventually we're going to get out of the competitive stuff. But I think this is both a topic that Esther and I are super passionate about, because we've gone to the events, we've championed for people, we've dedicated time and effort with our content creation, through us playing, through just like talking to people, answering questions, and for you to just like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I've gained quite a bit. I won Caster Cup, I won $100,000, and so for a while I was just quiet. I was always kind of being more of a company man, but I hear a lot of y'all's complaints in the DMs. You're not able to speak. You're scared of getting banned or muted or even ostracized or having a bad player experience.
Close to that supporter medal. You're this close to that supporter medal that might be happening. You're like, do I make one more comment? Like,
I might get a job. Maybe if I work.
I saw that Instagram post about like, hey, we're trying to bring content creators back and we're going to upgrade your medal. Great. And I'll make it this stream. We'll see what they do with that. But like, yeah, that goes into a topic we'll talk about after this. But like, between communication, I feel like Andy read in a book and Mike read in a book, never admit wrongs, never put something down on paper, never like gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, or you're going to look bad. Except for the thing they don't factor in is a lot of people in this game are older than them. A lot of people in this game have PhD, like, you got a smart player base, because you have to be smart to play this game, to learn all these rules and interactions. And you're going to events and we're seeing you in person. So it's like you're a human being. And so disrespecting other, like the amount of times I've seen people get treated like high schoolers. I was like, these are not high schoolers. These people are probably more successful than you. They just want to enjoy this game with other people, all of that. And it's like a little bit of communication, even a little bit. And gaslighting is not communication.
Not at all. And also how people might have bad experiences in person because of maybe their questions or concerns or their thoughts that they have online. So people have, again, there's people in the chat who may have had personal experiences with individuals, and we don't want, like, that leaves sour taste in people's mouth. Like, that isn't something that you should do. That's not becoming of a business. That's very catty, unprofessional. And so again, this is just us coming and advocating for all of those people, because the back channels, the change Discord names, the burner profiles, we all talk. Some people are afraid, some people aren't, and not saying that you should feel some type of way if you don't want to be ostracized, but we're just trying to.
Well, and also, if you've gone to a local game store, there are a couple topics that come every single time you go to a tournament. Every tournament I've been to, doesn't matter where I am, there's like people talk. It's a social game. You're sitting across from someone for an hour and then another person for an hour. By the time you leave a tower, you know at least 10 people, because you know Figier, you know whatever judge signed you up or was talking to you, and then you know all of your opponents. And so with all of that, it's like people talk. Like, we all know what's going on with this. And so, and Easton and I just knew, like, if they come at us and say this is bad faith, or you get people where it's like MetaZoo can do no wrong, and like that's on you. Like, that you have go with God. Like, we all we all have busy lives, right? If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. That's all right. But like, we knew we could sit up and we could talk about this, and we have experience with all of these things. And that's where I think, Easton being a vet from the beginning, me coming in this year, successes we've had, like, if this doesn't go well, then nothing can go well. But at the very least, also, this is all stuff we want to talk about. This is what we're talking about in our Discords. This is what we're talking about when we're in person. Like, and so getting this out there, I think, is important. And I think that kind of gets us out of competitive into more of the, like, we talked about unprofessional, we talked about accessibility, like talking about the fear, like the level that this game relies on FOMO still. And 2023 is just not the time to be relying on FOMO. FOMO is what you use in the beginning to get you that rocket boost. But fear of missing out on a tower, the people who went to Dark Tower because they heard you needed to go to a tower to qualify, and that was an expensive event. That was an expensive event.
You had to get to West Virginia. You had to either fly into the small airport in West Virginia, or go to Columbus, get a car, drive there. Then most of the hotels were
50 minutes away, because Mothman Festival is the biggest event in West Virginia every year. Like, so people are going out there because they want a shot at the 1.5 and they want to be part of history. People have been telling me great stories about Caster Cup all since I've been in the game, right? Even if you're not in it for the money, that's an experience you want to be a part of.
Right.
I like a lot of us, it's like, cool, Caster Cup's not going to happen, but you gaslight us. We didn't tell you Caster, we're not whining about something that you didn't tell us what was going to happen. We're not saying, oh, I wish MetaZoo did this, I wish it did that. It's like all of this ties in together, going back to the collectors of what's going on with them, going into LGSs, MZOs, what they got to deal with, the constructor or lack thereof, the lack of product drops, and then going into competitive, where it's like, it just felt like they're like, cool, we promised to juggle 20 things, but realistically, we're going to try to juggle 10 things, and we got to pick, and we're going to pick these things, and we're not telling you that we're picking that. And like, I don't know about you, but I just felt like, here's the thing, delaying Caster Cup with the prep they put in was absolutely correct. What was not, they were not going to be ready for that. That was going to be a disaster of an event, the way it was going on. We should have known that 6 months before. They had the Comic-Con's not going anywhere that day. We know when next Comic-Con's happening. And so you look at all that, and then it's like, that's where the gamble came in. And I think the gamble was Kuromi's Carnival, Cryptid Carnival. That was the gamble. They take, okay, we've made it so you need to go to a Dark Tower. biggest tower, or you need to go to a tower. Biggest tower is what, 180 people?
Yeah.
So
it was something around that
you take
number.
180, 140, you go across the 4 towers. You think of how many of those are the same faces, and then you think of the people who can afford to go to New York. And you're like, cool, I can estimate that at about 120 people who can even, like, between qualifying and affording. Or I can try to hit this Hello Kitty. I've seen the eBay prices off the San Diego, and I can bring in a new audience. And that was the gamble. I don't know what they spent getting the floor space and doing that festival and getting the plushies and everything else. Didn't have the product for their Halloween set. To me, like, that carnival, only way you're like, what, make it a Hello Kitty set. Like, the only way you're going off of Kuromi is because it's a Halloween set where you don't even have the product there when you've told people you're going to do that.
Yeah, you did say that.
And you're counting on that bringing people in. Like, it feels like instead of investing in what you have, which is obviously dedicated, like, look how many people are just watching this live. We'll see what it goes once we put up the VOD. We got 85 right now, and it's been going in and out. Yeah, no, we got a party here.
We got a little party.
Yeah, we almost got a tower going on right now. And so they took a gamble. Right? Other things, I think, there's been, but that was a proper gamble. They gambled their competitive base versus their potential collector base. And what are those booster boxes going for right now that got shipped 2.5 weeks ago?
Dump. This is from my vantage point, the issue with Kuromi. So again, I'm always thinking about what people are their points of view from this. And some people are, hey, Caster Cup and these tournaments are costing way too much. They shouldn't have never had them. Kudos on them for canceling them. But the same can be said in the inverse. Going to Comic-Con and going and spending for licensing for Kuromi, because it's not like a partnership. It's not like, oh, well, we just gonna give you the rights to these characters and for free, and then you gonna just get to put them on a card. No, you pay for the licensing. You have certain parameters that you can do. You might have to be clip art. It might be something along those lines, and then you print this out. But or you're able to utilize the cards, and there's also some logistics.
Well, and you think of the amount of logistics required, and Hello Kitty doesn't let you just slap their characters on something.
No.
Of the amount of back and forth the artist had to have gone through just to get those cards out. I was surprised how much original artwork was in there with just the cryptids in that style.
And I think
I cannot tell one Kuromi card from another.
Couldn't tell you. Like a man in the moon.
Because that's the whole thing. All right, that's not on MetaZoo. That's the whole Hello Kitty thing. They have a specific brand. They have a very specific brand, and that's who they went to.
Yeah, and we gotta start being more I guess authentic with our thoughts as a maybe kind of like the nerd culture. You might like one anime, you might like Hunter x Hunter, I might like Yu Yu Hakusho, created by the same creators, but we might be completely segregated in that fandom. Just because you hear a lot of people hype you up on the fact that, oh, Kuromi is this large IP and it's so broad, it's gonna go take it to the moon. And for the most part, it didn't do that, because a lot of the fans within the Sanrio universe, they also have it characterized based off of certain archetypes. So Hello Kitty is like an archetype similar to Barbie. Kuromi is more emo. My Melody is kind of like the shy girl. So and none of them are going to come to MetaZoo, or I won't say none of them. It's going to be very little for the return on investment. So if you want to, you can do. I'll present some homework. Go to Social Blade, time it, click on MetaZoo, put in their social handles, and look at the points of where we had the Comic-Cons. Look at what the growth trajectory happened. You can get a little brief example of what the ROI was for these events, because you eventually have to have. I mean, I'm sure a floor spot at Comic-Con is no less than maybe no less than 50,000 at a Comic-Con. So you're spending all this money, the booth, the licensing, all this other stuff, just to not necessarily have a really good analysis. And I think they whiffed completely. And so they went all in on this collab or this licensing operation, and it didn't necessarily pan out. And so now we're here.
And that's why I call it gamble, because it's just like, I saw that was a calculated choice. And at least for that one, I saw you make the calculated choice. Did not work out. and you went to build a bigger community, right, with Karomi and all of that, and the sacrifice was us. But the thing is, we're here, we're talking. Where's the Karomi people? Right, I'm very happy for Bats. Like, that's where I'm at. Every time I see a card, I'm like, I'm glad Bats got their chibi aura. Like, I'm glad this happened. But like, and I'm not like, I'll get this, Hello Kitty off my card. It's MetaZoo. It's fine. But I'm like, I thought I was going to be duking it out with War by now.
And I think it would have progressed the lore, but
I think at the very least, it's like a bookend. It's like the whole for over like what, a year and a half, we've known War is coming. Did you notice all the Collecticon promos this year were built into War?
Yeah,
and they had that whole, like, one of the most expensive Collecticon promos, which is Sam in his Cloud Strife. One? Yeah, with the Mothman. And so it's like you're building hype, and then that doesn't happen. And if you communicate that, but what makes that not happening difficult is all the surprise sets and all this other stuff. Not to mention the typical unprofessionalism in chat. If I'm being generous, if I'm not, I'm just being rude.
That's real. I was gonna say also, this makes you wonder what's going on with the leadership. What's going on with the development on that front? Because what is the thought process behind this, and why are there so many like kind of screw ups or kind of, I guess, missteps leading into this? This isn't like a one-time thing. This is like multiple
over and over again,
and this isn't just pre Mike or during with Mike. It's also currently with Andy. So something's going on, and it's a huge disconnect.
Well, and that's where I think one of the things that made MetaZoo successful in the beginning is they made a lot of weird decisions. They took risks. They did stable things like release your sets, get them tested, all that, but then they took risks. But those risks never superseded what the core of the trading card game was. Whereas this year, it feels like the whole year it's, I've brought up Elon Musk multiple times just because, like, my whole following's on Twitter for my normal job. I spent years building up that presence. Now I can't even get 5 people to look at something that normally 200 or 300 people would look at. It's a useless platform to me. And all they scream about there is innovation. And when we go here, when they initially talked about, like, hey, what if we use Cryptid Clash for the intro, or for the first rounds of Caster Cup? I'm like, for one, how are you going to do that? Like, that's not going to happen. For two, we're going to have to buy all those cards. So on top of the money we've already spent, and we don't have a new set, you're going to have us like rebuy these cards. Like, you're going to have to dump some money to get everything. Just with all of that, it's like, where you don't have your fundamentals down, and you haven't had your fundamentals down for a minute. And it's hard for me to look like, I get that delays happen. We've seen the Skeleton Crew MetaZoo rolls with. If you say, sorry, we're having trouble with this, like, Fajir needs to sleep, I get it. I see it, except for you're acting like that's not the case. And then you're acting like we're morons when we don't believe you. And then when the news comes and the people who did believe you, you're acting like they're morons.
Yep. Gaslight.
Yeah. Well, I think all that brings us, with like the artists. So on top of all this happening,
y'all ain't gonna look. Mama didn't raise no fool. Y'all ain't gonna tell me that one person, okay, they're leaving, they're moving on to greener pastures, they're transitioning, if you will. But you're not gonna tell me when there's 5, like there's a mass exodus, that this isn't a problem. And again, I'm very passionate about this because I fell in love. The first thing that I saw before I even stepped to play a card game was the art for the Headcaster medal. That was an older medal. That was what they used to market on Instagram. And so when you tell me like, oh, well, we're changing the art direction, but then you want to do a fan art contest that not only you said, hey, make existing beasties, but make them look kind of similar, pretty much similar, but remix it just a tad bit. It makes me confused because you're not really changing the art direction. Also, who's the art director? I like Chris. Chris is a Texan. I support Chris, but Pancho lives in Houston. I wasn't able to talk to him as much because typically during tournaments you're not able to mingle as much. But I think that there's a I think the art was extremely good. Chris was a very he had the chops. He was like I remember talking to him at a Long Beach Collecticon, and he gave us advice as far as being a leader and just being good people. And what you're not going to tell me is that, oh, this was just something that was, oh, like Pokemon and the original artists aren't there. No, I think that there might be something a little bit heavier to it. We won't know in full, but I don't think that, again, connecting the dots. This is another dot.
Should we read this anonymous quote?
For sure. Let's go.
Okay. I'm going to read this because I didn't collect this quote. So I'm less likely to give away the game. But this is from a MetaZoo artist. I encountered challenges during my time at MetaZoo, particularly in terms of project availability. The contract structure limited my ability to work on other projects during periods of inactivity, which is nuts. Additionally, there were changes to event participation and print selling policies. While I understand the need for adjustments, there was a lack of clarity and communication. Does that sound familiar? These issues, combined with what I perceived as toxic behavior and inconsistent communication, led to my decision to leave. I respect the privacy and the professionalism of my former colleagues and refrain from making any derogatory comments, regardless of how much I want to say things. I believe in focusing on my own journey and creative endeavors moving forward. But yeah, I think the two things compounded, the latter about toxic behavior being of the most concern to me, and all the artists that left. I appreciate you keeping me anonymous. And to respect that spirit of anonymity, don't try to piece together who said that. But, and does that surprise anybody? It felt like that's kind of what we were saying from the get-go. It's disappointment. It's like the whole thing comes down to disappointing, and that comes down to notice we keep talking up Fajir, we keep talking up the MZOs, and yet we keep looking at the top, and it's like top of this pyramid's not doing so hot.
Connect the dots.
Connect those dots. I mean, for one, this is something I said early in MetaZoo, and I let them know. It's like, look, community relations managers are very important, especially for if you're going to run Discord as a buffer between the people who are calling the shots and everyone else. They're the blank face that comes out and says, we're sorry, we understand. And while I don't like that, it's also you guys need that. You need to let them roll out Mike once a week or once every other week to do MetaZoo Hour, and then roll them back the way you do with any publicist. Because there's just if your interaction's going to be this bad, you need to limit those interactions. If your announcements are going to come these off a cuff and going to come with shaming your player base and shaming your customers, you need someone else to work. It's the first time in my life I'm get a robot to do this. Get a robot to talk to me.
There's got to be an AI for that, for sure.
Or there's just people you could hire. It's a business.
Yeah. Again, I'm sure they would hire if they could, but
and then going into trust, which is kind of the big theme of all of this, is so it's hard to see Caster Cup get canceled. It's hard to see what went on with Collecticon. It's hard to take your licks financially, whether you're a collector or a competitive player who try to make it to Caster Cup, and then you see this exodus of artists. It's not, none of it's a good look, and all of it compounds, right? Even if they lost 6 artists, but the rest of the trust was great, we're like, look, I love the artists. I wish them well. The cards are coming out, and I'm happy to play with these cards. You can't be losing at everything. You can't be losing at everything. And I don't know any customers or any player base as generous as MetaZoo. The few times I've gotten critical on towers, I'll have people come in and say hey, it's a new business, blah, 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 blah. We are so generous, but we're not idiots.
True. But at the same time, I think that with the Kickstarter revolution, it brought in a lot of either newer or novice players or novice enthusiasts that it basically made it to where they're like, oh, this is kind of normal, or they're first timers, right, Sean? And it doesn't, and they also let's just keep it 100. I think that a lot of us within the kind of nerd culture, we sometimes maybe let people step over us, and we don't like conflict very well. So we're just like, oh, well, man, I really wish I would have got a promo, or so-and-so did this or said this, but I'm not going to say anything. And to be fair and to be honest, I think that that's kind of what relays the niceness along around. It increases us being nicer and us being a little bit more passive. But in reality, we find that we all collectively know, but instead of like voicing our opinions or saying something, we're a little scared of getting banned, and we also don't want the conflict that might come with it, or people ostracizing you, because you don't want to be the person who's like, everybody's like, oh, everything's great, you don't know anything, this market is good, Pokemon's going down, this is going down too, you're wrong. And you don't want to be thrown out the group because of maybe you looking a little bit or inquiring a little bit more than other people.
Yeah, you're rocking the boat, but the boat's rocking.
Rocking.
I don't know if you want to read this. The eccentric visitor who says they're a former.
We will definitely get into more questions and concerns. Let me see. I think eccentric, is that Damien?
Well, it says, hi, another former employee. It was very toxic with late night demands and certain decisions made for us.
It is Damien.
Yeah. I had the most experience on the team, and anyone above me refused to listen to me.
That's another thing. I know plenty of people who are qualified who have ventured out and asked, hey, MetaZoo, do you want our my expertise? I have a skill set. I'm willing to maybe work on a contract level, even just give it volunteer. But maybe they might not take them up on it. I think eccentric visitor already said who they were earlier in the chat. That's Damien. But yeah, he said it right here. He said it if you go up the scroll at the chat. Yeah. But that being said, he's experienced. I think Argent Saga done a ton of Pokemon events, like super qualified. You need to hire these people. And if you don't hire these people, I'm going to start inquiring, like, why aren't you hiring people who know what they're doing, who know their market value, who know these things? But you don't. So I'm starting again, connecting the dots. And so that's another little bit. I think another aspect is people are offering the help, but they're not willing to accept it, or offering critiques, and you're, putting a clamp shut on that.
Yeah. Or something I've seen with like MZOs, and I've seen with some partners, is it's just like they're not being good to them. Like if I was MetaZoo, anyone sticking with me in 2023, whether it be a partner or judge, I'd be bending over backwards instead of tightening the noose.
Yeah.
Like you're tightening the noose, and that just comes to ego. And ego is not something organizations tend to have. Ego is usually something individuals have.
And again, what's the leadership projection going forward? Because we will eventually get to where we're going to table questions and stuff like that. But we're again wrapping up the story, because we have the artist we just talked about. Mm-hmm. She's Chromie Cryptic Carnival. I also wanted to. I guess
we're not griping about market. We're not griping about money we lost. We're just talking about what happened.
We're just talking about the stuff, the facts. These aren't anything these are things that are true. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, is there anything else we think before?
Well, we're talking, we're talking about this, like, I think we talked about 2023, and I think we've made our points. Is it's just like, there's trust. There's a lot of irresponsibility with other people's money. With other people's trust, and like trust, I've never seen trust this low before. Like I thought after Earth Tower, before Flame was happening, that things were low then. Things are low now, like really low. And I'm not even like market. It's like it's December. This happens every year, and there's no reason to like have any of these cards right now outside of collecting them. And so it's like, okay, for players, like that's an opportunity, pick up what you need for your deck. But like, and that's not to discount. I'm just saying, like, it's easy to have that stream and there's 100 people making videos like that. But for all of this, it's just like, how do you regain trust? Which I think takes us into like the idea of 2024. And I feel like so many people are clinging on to Cryptid Clash like it's the last scrap of wood from the last broken lifeboat.
It is. But I guess it's something that you can think about, because I think that everybody, I know the team, they're doing an amazing job. Shout out to all the beta testers. Shout out to everybody who's working on the back end.
I trust the team.
Yes.
I don't,
It's just that I believe personally that the magic of MetaZoo was, or it still is hey, why do you have a fishing pole? Why do you have a plant? Why do you have, this jewelry? What's going on? And not to say that you can't have that in a digital format, but the beauty of it was seeing everybody at Caster's Cup with a plant, or seeing everybody at a tower with a ski mask on, or seeing everybody at Flame with, uh, I guess a stone or a rock or some sand or something like that. And so that magical aspect that was also their greatest marketing tool was that the fourth walls affect everything else within the game,
including your opponent.
Including your opponent is gone. And so I understand that, the cryptic the client will make it more accessible for people to play, but I also think that there's more of an incentivization, because right now I think that, MetaZoo is, to me, moving in a place that they are making decisions out of maybe not out of fear, but they definitely need some type of traction, maybe some cash flow, something. And so I think that there needs to be some type of transparency. There needs to be some opportunities for the content creators to help them out, because people have left. People have moved on to learn content.
And that's what I was thinking with content creators. That's something I wanted to bring up. Someone earlier made a comment about Moldy and his brother with Meta Bros, how many people that brought on. Like, how many content creators are left? How many of the people, and I've talked to content creators who worked really hard and they didn't get any recognition, and even when like medals went out, they didn't get any medals, and like eventually they break, because it's just like you got the carrot and the stick, and then you got the whip, and you're only getting the whip and there's no indication. It's gaslight behavior. It's the whole, I'm gonna keep you on your toes, and I'm gonna keep you worshiping me, and I'm gonna keep you behaving right, because I might give you a morsel, but if you speak out, you don't get anything.
If you don't protect us, if you don't defend us,
like, it takes me being a stubborn content creator who's got other stuff going on to be like, all right, let's bring in some of that like Tolarian community college energy, which I feel like this talk is very kind of in that line. Like, a lot, that's the top Magic content creator. And so I just look at all these people and I was like, that's also not because there's the whole like, I'm gonna open product wing of content creation. A lot of that's like shop advertising, which, like, yeah, that makes sense. But then there's like, who you're gonna go right now to help play the game, and I'll tell you, you're gonna go for two per spell book to get your reviews, and you're gonna go to MetaZoo Keeper, who's still hanging out strong. And I think there's room for others to come, but the fact that like it takes effort. Even putting the stream together today was some effort, right? It takes effort. You have to want to do something to make content. And when you're losing all those people, and it's not just because there's a new greatest thing going on, it's because of like behavior, it's not a good sign. Like, it's not a good sign, especially when a lot of those people are the people we like hanging out with most. And luckily, they're still around. They're just on other card games.
Exactly. And the thing with those card games is they have consistent tournaments, consistent events. And again, they're larger or whatever it is, but I think that you need to allocate those resources to continuing that kind of pipeline of, hey, playing in your local game stores to playing in a regionals or anything like that. I think that there was that aspect, and also there's nobody to hold MetaZoo accountable. I think that at the end of the day, for the competitors or anybody, I think that what we were doing at Cash Society, what Metaversity's doing, what there's all these different discords. I mean, there's so many great partners.
Rami's been putting in work with the Mishi's Discord.
Yeah,
he's putting in so much work, giving up playtester cards just to try to keep some kind of competitive scene alive.
Things going, but it does that lack of like, there's fewer people around now, and that lack of accountability. They're like, MetaZoo's like, well, I don't have to really do anything. I mean, nobody else is doing it, so we don't really have to do it. And again, the premise has always been we've had to scream, claw, temper tantrum to get events going, to get things going, to get any kind of movement. It's never been we're just doing it because we, appreciate you all, and we think that this is an important thing. And so I guess we can get into the 2024 expectations, because at this point, the content creators, you all are doing great work. I see Tormentic doing stuff with the manga. I see so many people. I saw Peter doing good stuff. I see Piwizo doing great stuff. I see Nick doing great stuff. I see there, and this is just recently. Again, I'm probably missing tons and tons of people. MetaZoo, there's everybody. And again, if I get in this list of people, I'm probably going to miss somebody, but just know that I see you all, and you all are like doing amazing work.
Bounding together, like, you know, Dr. Card stepping up to try to like make the Mishi's tournaments more robust, like that. And it's sad that that's what has to happen. It's beautiful that that's happening, right? That's good to happen at any point. But if it's like, if I want to play right now, that's my avenue. And it's just not a lot of people right now. And I know to an extent, it's like, you need a new set, you need War, but when's War going to come out? When you buy War, are you going to get War? Are partners going to get saddled with it? How many are they printing? And not to like, I get why they don't release print runs now, but at the same time, if you're going to have a Kuromi's Cryptic Carnival where boxes are $65 right now, it's been out for 2 or 3 weeks, you can't do that to partners. Like, I'll keep buying stuff from Kai anytime I get the chance, but like, that's all of us like trying to put the work to keep people afloat. And that's going into 2024. It's just like trust.
You got to do a lot.
If they announce, you know, like, when do they need their next competitive event to completely lose? It's like February, right?
Minimum February. If they have anything later, then players are already moving on to other things.
Lorcana and One Piece are here. They were not here when things were happening before. Like, you now have big companies who've moved in, and you were already competing for Magic and Pokemon's market share. And now you got other things where I could go to any local game store within 2 miles of me and play those games. But I didn't do that. I drove an hour to play MetaZoo, and now I can't do that. Like, and so, yeah, with the trust, it's just like, how do you even get that back? Can you get that back, right? If Legacy ships and there's no redeem cards, at that point, I'm like, I'm surprised lawyers aren't being busted out, because that is a straight, like, why else are you buying a set that is reprints?
Yeah. You know?
And so with all of that, it's just like, it's like you have so many opportunities. And I think 2023 is going to be tough for MetaZoo no matter what. But like, it's like an LGS, right? They're struggling, but you're showing up. You see they're putting in the work. They're talking to you. You're showing up. You're trying to do your part. Whereas like right now, I'm like, someone called for it. It's like, you got to get rid of leadership at this point. Like, that would seems like a huge step of like replace leadership with, I worked for Barnes & Noble for a long time, and they kept trying, their main head honcho kept trying to retire, and they'd put in some CEO who'd screw everything up and make everybody miserable, and then they get rid of him, and then the old guy came back and made everyone happy, and they did that over and over again for like 8 years before they landed someone who was good. And like, that was the only way we like stayed working there, was it's like, all right, the guy who's taking care of us came back. Or in this case, it's like getting some kind of new blood. But even there, I feel like you're going to need to focus on core sets again. Like, you're going to need to focus on core sets. And also, a lot of people are only going to buy Cryptic Clash once if they buy it at all.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to sell someone new on MetaZoo with Cryptic Clash when you have like 10 good online TCGs that you can play by yourself with story modes and voice acting and cartoons and all of that. Like, that's a tough get. And I'm looking forward to Cryptic Clash, and that's a good idea, but you can't have that take away from LGSs. Like, it's only accessible if that is supplementing, because you're giving other paths, right? But then you also need any kind of constructed stuff happening at stores. And then you need reasons for that to happen, whether that be like, let's reduce metals. In the meantime, they just need a emergency injection of like, let Rami and let them do medals for their online tournaments. Like, make an online medal. You know, if you're worried about syncing stuff, find a reason for people to show up, because you need that for a minute. If War comes out, because I'm not expecting War before summer at this point. If War comes out and it's hot and the game's good, like, people will play if you give them any reason to play. But if you make it hard to justify playing, That's a problem. And then like, cool, after war, what are we getting next? Because it was going to be SCP. It's like, okay, are we getting 7Cs? Because 7Cs, if they did it right, if they got a strong competitive scene going, right, which at this point just means like if you can incentivize constructed to the point where 8 people show up, that great. Because then in 7Cs you got water fusion auras, which are going to switch up everything. Because now everybody's got dampen.
Everybody, yeah.
And if I was running MetaZoo, I would want a rich group there. I would want a rich group, because the idea of like, all right, we're going from war where we're probably going to get some high power stuff. We're going to be able to like, sunset. We're going to be able to get our last Flatwood monster card, our last card with Sasquatch on it for a while. And then you're going into 7Cs where all these water fusion auras are coming out, and now the whole game's different. Or is it just going to be Argos opening up product, being like, wow, a shiny card. I got this other water fusion aura. This is cool. Nobody's going to use this outside of like kitchen TCG players.
It's one of those things where, I think the client is going to be good, but everybody's like, well, there's MetGo and there's Arena, and the player bases for Magic are rather large. And so when we think, this is why you don't necessarily need to do drafts, like have a draft format or a commander format this early, because we're a very young, very budding TCG. And so if you fragment players, because in the beginning, most time, like Commander and Magic didn't get popular until a lot of the casuals were like, wait, well, these tournaments are getting way too strict, way too tough. We need another fun kind of format. But it wasn't out of just the beginning. Like, that's us trying to come out with Commander set early on. They also didn't come out with a client early on, because again, that segments the player base. If you have a different meta online than you do have in person, that's like us with 300 players or 1,000 players trying to have standard, legacy, all this other stuff. And
that only works. Having all those formats only works when you have a ton of players. Like, I do think MetaZoo needs a casual format. Like, I propose one. Like, I think episode 3 of Towers, a bunch of other people have. But like, at this point, who has it in them to put in the work to try to standardize something? MetaZoo could do that, but like, yeah, having a 4-person casual format that you can just play, the way I did my format with the pure reason was, I'm like, I got all these LGSs that, like, one of my LGSs is now giving away event decks. They're like, if you agree to teach someone the game, I'll give you as many as you want. Just please take these. And this is all like, cool, you got to rebuild. And I think part of it is you got to bring in new people, knowing that they're going to YouTube and they're going to find this, you've already got, and I think we're still being fairly generous, even as we're being like critical, and we're still being constructive.
We need the new cards on MPN.
Off of a negative. Yeah, we don't have disclosure. Even if you're stoked about disclosure, you can't play with it. Forget Kuromi. If Kuromi is a licensing issue, whatever, disclosure's not. These other cards aren't, so you can't even play.
And we appreciate the is it Rami and them and Tribe Called Quest making the cards and Doctor cards. Like, we appreciate you making the cards, but that shouldn't be on you all. It shouldn't be on the community. It should be on the company. It should be on the leadership. And so if you're, again, wanting us to play the game, or at least like participate, or even somebody to collect, like, it's hard to get this stuff. Like, why aren't set lists out before the cards drop or anything like that? Like, Magic, plenty of people have done it. Like, they spoil it, then like the Thursday before the pre-release, they drop the set all the way through, and you can go from there. But that's just another like pain point that we're having problems with.
Well, especially like if you're gonna have the manga, and I don't want to go into too much like, oh, they could do this magical thing, because they're already trying to do too many magical things. But it's like, you already have the manga, which means you're trying to create like a visual experience to help enhance the game and enhance your relationship with the world. Yeah, put out a little themed set list with like, a little silhouette of the secret rare and like other stuff to get people talking it up. But even then, it's like, yeah, Herman just said they need to narrow their focus. Start over. Get your sets in line. You did it before. You did it for years, like several years. I got a whole, you can't see, I've got a whole list of binders over there. I love the binders. Like, I love, bringing up this tower stuff. Like, I love this stuff. That's what keeps me in the game. I can't get official stuff like that with Pokemon as easily, or there's just so much of it. There's no exclusivity. But like, and then I have like prints. Like back here, I got a MetaZoo print there. I got a bunch behind my head that I got through artists. Like, that's really cool. You already have that. Build off of that. And we'll see. Because right now, like, am I playing MetaZoo? No. I got other stuff to do. I have other stuff to do. Like, I'm going to try to get it in me after the holidays to sign up for some of these Mishi tournaments. But, like, all I was doing was playing MetaZoo a lot of the year. And the fact that the air went out of the tires that quickly. But it wasn't that quickly. It was a bunch of little holes were getting pushed in through trust. And then eventually they all go at the same time. Like, I would love to see MetaZoo get it back on his feet. But I don't see the first whatchamacallit, Yokai Island coming out next year. I don't even know if War's gonna be here by summer. I don't know when Legacy's gonna be here. I don't know if it's gonna have the redeemable cards, and I don't know when I'm gonna be able to redeem them. I don't know how that system's gonna work. Like, and also, if you think of these AAA video games that come out and they need patches and are broken and like there's holes, it's only it doesn't matter how talented and skilled Bats and the team are. There's going to be breaking points. Like, that's going to be a process. Like Arena has that. And so if we're putting all of our eggs in that basket, it's like, I know they're doing the best they can with that. But even then, now that's pulling more people away from your stores. That's why I put the effort to go to a store if I can just play an online client. And if you're trying to do both, do I have it in me? Luckily, Bats has said you'll be able to just play and get the cards. There's going to be quests. There's going to be ways to, like, tear your cards down, turn them into other cards, which is great. So there's going to be free to play options, at least for now. I know that's the intention of the creators. It's the intention of the creators.
But when that money machine go burr, when you need some money,
you can see, and like that, that's my like official I'm out point, right? That's where I'm like, I'm not even looking at this. If it's just like, okay, now you're trying to sap that, but it's like, I already have a collection. Do I want to put in the effort to get another collection online? The answer is like, I'll probably do it, because at least that one I can play more casually. But it just seems like an uphill battle. And as you pointed out, they saved the 1.5 million with Caster Cup. They saved probably at least 250K with canceled towers. It's not like they were spending any money on our prizing. That's something I didn't even bring up. When you get a couple $1,000s in prizing for doing well in a tower, do you want UFO, Wilderness, or second edition?
And it's at MSRP. It's not even like
MSRP.
It's not even at eBay price.
I haven't spent any of my points. Like, those we sold for cheap. Which once again does not help the general market, because I'm like, between all of us, I think we got hundreds of boxes. Like, just get these off of our hands. But even then, like, my points for like victories and local tournaments and stuff, it's just like, well, Andy said that you're going to do some exclusive promos for that. So I don't want a pair of Fresno Nightcrawler sweatpants that are white that I won't be able to clean properly, when I spill something on them. So, like, I'll just wait for those if they're going to happen. I'm looking at another, and there's things where it's like, this is just false advertising at this point, where the packs the promos they're going to send out for every, like, what, 25 or $50 you spent. A batch of those went out. I haven't seen anything.
Nothing.
And that got me to buy Legacy. Part of it was I was also up in Bryce Canyon, so I was sun-baked and high elevation, and I didn't realize Legacy was like something that was going to last more than 2 days, so I just ordered it. But that was like helped sweeten the pot of like, oh, you'll get these promos, mystery promos. We don't know what they're going to be. I'm seeing a bunch of people in chat be like, I haven't seen any of those.
I mean, the stories are kind of endless at this point.
And maybe that's a good thing to do, like, before we open just to community questions and stuff, is like, the stories are endless, and that's not good.
And that's not good. And
especially where the game is at the size that it's currently at, and it's struggling to get sets out, it's struggling to ship us what we paid for. Like, that's not good.
And again, we're just coming from this from we love MetaZoo. We really do care. Like, I've met some lifelong friends in this game. I've kind of rekindled my, like, I've my childhood like passions and dreams through this game. And again, you can go through all the old videos. I was over here championing for MetaZoo and for players to get it together. But now I'm coming to you as maybe like a uncle or a cousin or a friend who's like, hey, be smart, look at the whole picture, connect the dots, and then start to vote with your dollars, because nothing's going to change until it either hurts in the pocketbooks or if we have to do what we always done, and that's scream, claw, and complain. And so I'll just leave it at that. I think 2024 will be hopefully a great and prosperous year for MetaZoo. I hope that they get it together. I think that anything less than having events on a full event list and product list by February is unacceptable. I think that that's an issue at the top as far as like at that position. And I think that if they're not able to carry that through the entire 2024, and there needs to be like maybe a set every 4 months, or maybe at minimum or at most wait time half a year, maybe 2 sets this year, and then like mini stuff, and the timeline, things need to come to you in a timely manner. If that doesn't happen, then we're just wasting our time. We're wasting our breath. People are wasting their energy, and that's just what it is.
And if they're releasing broken promos where it's like, okay, like I know they're putting work into testing War. If that testing goes nowhere because they just like had to get something out the door, like Native was Native brought so much strength to the meta, so much variety. This is the only card game where I could play like 8 different decks and do well. With different colors, like I can tap into all of it, and I don't want to lose that, right? And so it's an uphill battle, and I don't know if it's something that the current leadership is capable of, because I think this is an attitude problem. This is not there's business sense, there's all that, but you guys got these sets out before. You guys showed us that you can send LGS stuff. And we see you shaming your players and roasting your players when they try to ask for any kind of accountability or just ask a question. The fact that so many people are afraid to speak up, and that's not like a uppercase A afraid, but still just like, is this worth me speaking up? Because I might get banned, I might end up on some shit list, and what good is it gonna do? Like, and then you got the heroes who go in there anyways and try to like let the people's voice be heard. But like one thing I love about the internet is I get to put this video up and they don't get to take it down because they don't own YouTube. I hope they wouldn't want to take it down. Like, I would hope if they watch this, they pay attention, they take notes. No, we're not saying anything new, though. Community's been saying this all year and longer.
Just quietly, the small chirps, and that's another thing. Is like you got to stand up for yourself at some point. Yep. At some point, you have to stand up for yourself, and even with again, I'm sure maybe Harley might feel like this. I'm just pointing this out before we kind of keep moving along and open it up. But he did something brave and courageous by going on live and telling his truth and his story, and doing it unapologetically. Yeah. And I commend that, because a lot of people aren't able to do so, and also put a name with an experience. Being able to like showcase and share those things. I think I commend Harley on that, because if you're gonna do an event, Roswell, Harley's there, Comic-Cons, Harley's there,
and he's making content for everyone. He's interviewing competitive players. He's talking about the experience of being there. He's talking about art. Like, he's doing all of it, making content for everyone, or he was. Luckily, other games are receiving him with open arms. And that's MetaZoo's loss.
And that's going to be for a lot of their loss on a lot of people.
I don't know if you noticed the latest episode before this on the podcast. It's nom nom content, like, because I know that's going to do those good people, those people good, the community's good, leadership's communicating so much. It's like, even I was planning on doing more with MetaZoo. Like, I was going to do season 2, and I haven't like cut off. I'm not making MetaZoo stuff. Like, I'd like to do Cryptic Clash or whatever. It's just like right now, I don't like doing wasted effort when it comes to content creation, because I'm a content creator for a living. This is supposed to be fun. And so if I'm going to put a bunch of effort into an episode that like only 20 people are going to get any good at it, like, doesn't make sense.
For sure.
Do we want to open it up?
Yeah. Last thing I'll say is this: if you might be quiet, but the same way that somebody got treated is the same way that you can be treated. Just that you might be on the other foot in one scenario versus another. So it might not be you today, but it could be you tomorrow. And
and we appreciate everyone who's been participating. I hope this has been cathartic. We're gonna keep talking in here, but like, this is the community stuff I love. Even when we're talking about like stuff where it's like this, we should be on here talking about the Caster Cup right now.
We should. No, the winner, the new winner should be here. But again, we're still waiting on Dark Tower payments. Like that's always mind-boggling to me. It's like,
over and over again.
But let's open up the floor for questions.
And if you're a content creator and you want to make like a thing like this, I saw Harley seemed to kick it off, and then I saw Argos did his version of a live stream. We're doing this. I'm sure Herman and Logan got a meta talk that they've ready to go. Like, talk to people. We'll back you up.
What did you have for lunch, Easton? I had some eggs for lunch real quick. Just was working, so I got some eggs.
I did the same thing because I was like, I gotta get ready for this stream.
Yeah. Yes, Camp Psycho, y'all haven't been paid for that. No, we have not been paid for Dark Tower. So that was another thing. Was Nick was in the chat yesterday and actually asked about, because he won the $20,000 for the tower, and so they just brushed him off, and everybody was just saying good morning in the chat. So look, put the dots. Put the dot. More questions. Tell me more about the brick packs that some folks get and how other folks get hits. Those are more speculations, but one day, some stories are left untold. But I think that some people have some good packs. They just got hot hands, I guess.
Yeah.
Shout out to Chris in the chat.
And that's something MetaZoo's been pretty clear from the beginning. Is like, all right, we're just doing true random. It's just gonna be wild. So I don't get mad at them for that. Like, that's where it's like buy singles.
What do y'all think of the lack of holiday product? I'll let you take that one.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I didn't buy. I didn't buy any. Like, I have a policy. I don't buy partners or licensed stuff. So like when it was Pin Club, I don't buy Pin Club. And man, did that bite me in the butt with last Christmas. But like, we had several strong Christmas sets. Like, I really loved last year's Halloween set. Those cards were like, those mask cards, they just look good. And I think that's what you want out of like a holiday promo set, at least for me, is it's like, make this one for the kids. Like, make some dope cards that make you remember this thing, because I just don't want people to be locked out because they missed the like 4-hour window to buy this stuff. But I would rather get Legacy than a holiday set. I would rather get like so many things than a holiday set at this point. Like, at this point, I would rather we have less sets personally.
Yeah, for sure. Same. But I also think, again, you got to have money for it. You got to have money for it. And I'll always lean back on that, because I think anybody who's an established or experienced TCG player knows when people start, the easiest way to drop your overhead is to reduce the tournament scene. And before I got back into TCGs, the Spoils was my last TCG, and I got to the cruise. They had a cruise that was $1 million, and I qualified, and my parents took off work, and because I was a minor at the time, and they were going to go on the cruise for summer and everything like that, and they rug pulled us. And so for me, I'm always like, well, the history of TCGs, when they end, they cancel or they postpone that major cash prize. That's an indicator to me. But again, it's just MetaZoo.
I'm gonna do Guts question. Serious question. Do you think we will get all possible fusion combinations? What is the expected timeline on that? I'm worried that we don't. I'm not gonna read the rest, but like, I don't think we should have all fusion combinations. At least that would be insane balancing. I think they should be very intentional. I think Earth was a good choice because it was such an underpowered thing. But you're talking about like, you want Dark Light Fusion Aura, you want Dark Spirit Fusion Aura. I think it would be a bit of a mess. Like, that's a case where, as long as they communicate, like if this whole time we thought we were getting Fusion Auras, like I thought we'd get some kind of half light fusion auras, half dark fusion auras with
or
war.
one of each color. Like,
yeah, well, just because it's like, show us who's affiliating with who. You know, if
like
water is
Magic.
affiliating with dark, you know, if spirit's affiliating with dark, you know, do that. But and for one, we need 7 Cs to come out, which means we need war to come out before we even think of fusion auras.
I think Basic earlier asked, is it true that MetaZoo is refunding for native streamer kits? That's a word on the street. I also saw some people like, you know, there's like some 30-day rule that they couldn't like get refunded. So they were like offering store credit or something like that. But yeah, I think if you ask for a request, you might be able to get a refund. But the chat can kind of direct that. I know that some of them were asking to, you know, get refunds.
Yeah, I'll look at Mr. Run It Up for the content. How did you both feel about being on a supporting team during these tough times of 2023? If I didn't have the team, I'd be having a much worse time.
Oh, you know? For sure.
And I think that goes for people who have like their Discords they're active in. Like if you don't have people right now, I don't know.
I think that it was having some people who were like-minded, who you could talk to and who can understand like what you were going through. Because again, I saw it constantly. If you didn't necessarily play in the tournaments, or if you weren't necessarily a player, your easiest thing for whenever they canceled a tower or something like that was like, they shouldn't have had it. It was too much. But like, you pour in so much effort and energy to inspire your friends to get in, or motivate other people, or even just training and practicing, and your eyes are like bloodshot, or you're like, you know, things, you're just tired, but you're trying to make something happen. And to have somebody who you can lean on that understood those kind of nuances was always good. And, you know, maybe move on to other games or something like that in the meantime.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Successful in getting refunds on the streamer kit. You shouldn't have had to, but I asked for a refund and they said it was outside the window, so I said I would charge back, and voila. I had the same thing with Legacy. Is I messaged them once they canceled Caster Cup, because I was like, I'd rather put this 250 into like Kai, or, you know, there's people who could use this going into the holidays. There's businesses I want to support, and they said outside of the 30-day window, which once again, that's where that gaslighting comes in, where is it outside their stated 30-day window? Yeah, but like the release wouldn't be until outside of that. When things get delayed, you're supposed to open that window again. And I'm sure if I forced it, but I'm like, this isn't worth me getting banned from the shop where they're like, all right, I'll give you this cookie and that's your last one.
Did we miss anybody's questions?
I know there are a bunch of questions throughout the thing. If you guys saw any questions that you thought were good, but that person might not be in chat anymore, like...
Let me see.
Shout that out.
Anyone see? Oh, Ghost Train Conductor said, anybody see where Wubby gave his insight on Zoo recently? I did. Esther, did you?
I didn't.
Oh, I'll send you the link. But it was interesting. I'll say that because it would, again, connecting the dots. I'm like, well, you know, Alex was promoted to be the art director. So, and now she's not the art director, and Chris was removed from being the art director, and she's been placed as the art director. So why would Wubby in front of 15,000 people say something negative like that, unless it's like, you know, maybe something is off or something isn't adding up. So I'm like, something is there. That's why none of the little artists, oh, we're changing artistic directions, oh, Pokemon artists, the originals aren't there forever, never made sense to me. But again, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, you know, trying to use my first 48 sensors, my spidey senses.
Yeah, and that's Ghost Train says, I would have been okay with waiting if there's communication. 100%. We all got other stuff going on, but in your opinion, how would you fix the state of play competitively? Having competitive play?
Minimum.
And
that's it.
And that follows up to the next one. What do you think of KCC gameplay mechanics so far? They worry me. On the one hand, I'm glad Chibi's got support, you know, but they worry me about the playtesting, which goes into the competitive. Like, I think this game's done a pretty good job with balance, and people will joke on that, but I have played other games where it's like, you get to pick one of these 3 decks. I worked at that LGS for a long time. They're like, you get to pick one of these 2 decks and play it. And hopefully it's great. Hopefully it shakes out. I haven't played enough with KCC yet, and I'm not planning on buying it. I'll buy singles if I need them for an event.
Yeah. I think to fix competitive, I think you can't lean too heavy into Cryptic Clash, because right now the magic that you have with MetaZoo is that you can play it and people are like, oh, I'm wearing crazy costumes. Like, we had so many good people who were wearing costumes and different things like that, and that affected it, the community, or screaming in real life, like for Jersey Devil, like that was phenomenal. That was easy marketing and different things that people could talk about. I think that you lean there. One, two, you have a roadmap and you adhere to it, most importantly. And three, give the LGSs something. And if you have Caster Cup or towers, make playing in LGSs, maybe get back to that, because that really did spark a lot of LGS play, because everybody was beating on their LGS's door like, hey, we need to have an event here so we can play at Caster Cup. I think if you maybe tapped into that, you could be in a place where, you know, it could kind of revitalize some things. But right now you have to captivate those people who you lost. And so if you save that all that money from Caster Cup and towers, it shouldn't be, you're postponing Caster Cup, so it shouldn't be no issue, you know, moving that 1.25, maybe even half it. I'll give you that, half it, and moving it into another event or the roadmap for next year. But again, I don't foresee that happening. But hey.
Yeah, a couple people made comments on how strong Light is. I mean, I beat Light decks. Like, Light's very strong, but Lightning was very strong for a long time. That's something I really like that MetaZoo's done, is the idea of, like, we printed these broken cards in the first set. Quetz, Frogman, Gumbaroo is the most broken card I've ever read in my life for 1-drop. And then filling everything in to meet that. I think that's why so many archetypes are valid. Uktena is just a beast. And I think KCC might have pushed it over to, like, don't mess with Light. But also, like, you can beat Light.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's ways. I think that the disclosure packs, I mean, the grays are sick. So, I mean, the meta is kind of interesting right now, but definitely more playtesting. They need more playtesting.
And I think that's the thing. I think Light in the online meta right now is really good. Like, I think that's the thing, is it's stomping. But that's if we had a more robust thing, and that's something I was so excited for going into Caster Cup, is
it's going to change everything.
I just knew all of these, like, I knew your team had the lab. I saw what was going on in our lab. An upside, or it's not really an upside, but it's like, okay, this isn't a downside of not having constructed, is we're all going to show up there and we were going to beat on each other with decks nobody had ever thought of before. We were going to go in with stuff where it's like, I assumed this was going to be meta, and apparently, like, nobody's playing this. I thought everybody would be playing this. And then that, you know, doesn't come up. And then people are, like, so unmotivated, they're not just going to, like, post their deck lists online. And that's something that gets into content creation, where people have asked, because I've been on both sides of this, but, like, why isn't sharing decks such a thing? In other games, like in Magic, you can make money through ads and Patreon and stuff by being that guy on YouTube that shares decks, by being, like, a crucial resource. You can't do that with MetaZoo. And also, like, if you kind of caught our attitude at this point, like, there's so much kind of going wrong and so much you have to just endure and, like, take on the chin, that you're like, okay, if I'm going to go here, I at least want to make this worth my while.
Yeah.
Like markers, no one wants to share decks. Like, and that's where I think a casual format would be great.
Yeah. It also with the fan base, again, this is how I knew it was a very young and novice fan base, that everybody was like, well, the intentional draws, you know, it takes away the this and that. There's people who went 4-0-4 and didn't make the top 32. So the intentional draws has been a thing from the beginning. Like, this has been in Magic and everything it is. Every TCG has always been around. Now, what people are trying to like mitigate, or what the MetaZoo crew is doing when they made it to where, oh, the higher your ranking, you get to choose first. Like, that was a very good
incentive. That was smart.
Very smart. Very smart. I'll give them their kudos on that. But I do believe that that's something that's natural and normal and it's okay. But everybody's like, well, they were intentionally drawn because they have a lot of people. You still have to kind of go undefeated to even have a chance to, or at least you have to have a certain point threshold to even make it there. So I wanted us as a group to like collectively get that knowledge, because it's not just like, oh, you play your friends and you get in the top 32. It's like you had to pretty much go undefeated, and then if you played people that you didn't mind drawing with, it helped out. But
well, and that's where, because I came in as a new player and then saw that there's just no way to moderate it. Like every game has tried it, and I don't know. Traumatic. If anyone can make top 32, or if I can make top 32, anyone can. Shout out. That's how I felt. People heard my episodes going into Earth Tower, and then I came back undefeated day 1, and then this guy knocked me the fuck out day 2. But that was a great match. Like that was a highlight list for me. People talk about like top 8 deck. Like I'm not opposed to deck lists going out after events.
Yeah, I think
that's just like once you're talking about getting on the top of things, like I do think if you go participate like with Mishi, there are resources that you can go find and you can get like a good meta to have a strong deck. It's just while things are very wholesome, it is wholesomely cutthroat. Like if one team posts their deck list, everyone else is going to adjust to that. Right. And now you have 2 weeks. You spent a month working on that list, and you got 2 weeks to try to stay ahead of everyone else. It could go either way, but that's just where we live in right now. And right now there's just not the incentive to be the deck builder and like talk about your competitive experience. Like Pokemon's got YouTubers that are like, I'm walking you through every tournament I play. We don't have, that's like a pillar we've talked about, like collectors, LGSs. We just don't have that incentive for content creation. And the game's involved enough where it's hard to be getting those top rated decks and make content.
Yeah. And to be fair, just a little tip in terms of like what people do, like a lot of the, former like Star City Games champions and teams used to do it all the time. By the time that they play a deck at a tournament and it goes live, they already have the way to beat it in the next one. So everybody's going to be playing that deck at the next event. And they just kept, it was just a revolving circle of them winning because they already were on to the next meta. I think that as the maturity of the player base and the fan base grows, you'll understand that the IDing thing really isn't like that big of a deal. Now there are like large teams and different things like that, but even still then, like there was tournaments where like, what was it? Tower winners didn't even make top 32. I mean,
well, I made top 32 Earth Tower solo.
Yeah.
And honestly, me not being on a team, I think helped with that because I just came up with a weird deck. This is a little indulgent, but someone was asking Herman, what didn't I see? And referring to if Esther didn't get sick, she would have won the whole Dark Tower. I just had a different side deck than my team. But I was so sick first day, I couldn't make it work. But that was the thing, is they're like, man, that extra little spice we needed was that side deck. Though I got to shout out Easton. Your team's like, that's my favorite tower deck I've seen. Just because that came in, you're like, all right, I know these cards. Like, I feel like if I'm not mistaken, the red ink afforded you the room to play the slower game, which let you beat on heavy afterwards.
For sure.
And then shouting out the Owls not having removal.
Yeah.
And that's their magic experience, because they're like, you're playing a BC for 1, I'm removing it for 3. That's not worth it.
Yeah. Everybody has their own different strategies, and I think that a lot of people, when they thought about the towers, they were like, we got to win every tower, or we have to do well. And it's like it's almost like a game, like a tournament for sports, and it's like you don't need to win every game to make it to the playoffs to win the championship. You just need to get better and learn different things. And I think each tower is almost like Avatar, where you're learning each element. Like
that was like when I had my match against you, Earth Tower, I was like, man, if I was gonna have that luck on that first game at least against someone, I'm glad we played together. And then that second match was a big beat 'em up where we played out like a lot of our decks.
Yeah.
And that my indication was, I was like, okay, the aura variant. And to be clear, Easton had me either way. I didn't have that green giant. And like my deck was really good against giants, and Easton wasn't just playing giants. You had a variety.
I was playing it all.
You had a variety which helped you against my deck. My deck was just good at cutting giants down. But I was like, okay, the answer is it's not just make it to top 32. To get rid of variants, you need to make it to top 32 multiple times. And then Flame Tower is the next one, got up to that top 8. And then, Dark Tower got super sick. I also luck wasn't with me that day. And like 3 of the 4 teams, like our teams, I'm very proud of both of them. And then the Owls. Well, and that was, to get into like some of the petty stuff of like Andy and the announcement being like, we don't want to know, we're just know exactly who would go to the top. It's just like, what do you expect, man? If you're expecting the same people who are taking the top of these, and there's always new faces in top 32. Like there's always new faces. But like, what is your goal here? Some of your most dedicated people who are putting the work in. You don't want them winning this thing. And then think of the spice if someone new came out and took the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think that there's a skill level, but again, you had your tower casters from other towers not even make it to day 2. So it wasn't a thing. It was always it wasn't like an IDing thing. It was a gauntlet getting into those events and doing well consistently. So I think that as the game continues and the team, like overall people mature, it'll be a bigger or it'll be a better learning curve going forward.
Yeah, and I would be down to see towers go online, but constructed events being regular, because something I think that towers did, especially so many new players, is it got us used to mechanics we wouldn't normally get used to. Like people were learning how recursion worked at Dark Tower because they thought they had it, but it took it further. But like either way, it's like we need that physical. We need those physical plays with those incentives.
For sure. And I think the only issue I have with maybe just playing strictly at the more client play is that the cards, I mean, it's going to have to be one, it's going to have to be its own meta. 2, a lot of the cards might not be programmable within the client.
Right. And that's I think it would take the client a long time to be able to host a tower that's not just like the roaming neutral play anything tower. Somebody mentioned nobody would play the game if it weren't for the money. I was playing the game not for the money. I love this game. I love playing this game.
Contrary to popular belief, the first event that they had that offered money was Caster the Extravaganza. But every one of the events, the Emerald City Comic-Con, E2C2, everything like that, people were just going there for the trophy cards. It wasn't I mean, I have a trophy in the back, the original Houston Collecticon trophy, the uncut cheat one. That was what we were playing for. I mean, granted, it's also a marketing expenditure. Like you're paying money in terms of retention and growth, because you're also, if people are playing your game, they're not typically not playing or spending a lot of money in other games. But so it's a price tag that's associated with it. And so when people say, oh, you're giving up this huge prize pool, it's part of retention and growth. It's not just a prize pool. And no, you're doing things to keep people engaged and also bring people from other games. Because Caster Cup, we had Philly Luna, we had Steve Silverman. Like, if you know anything about trading card games, like Steve is like a OG mastermind, like won a YCS, won a Pro Tour and Versus system. Philly is like one of the greatest Yu-Gi-Oh players of all time. Like,
oh man, I got a lot of sessions in with Philly, and when we're trying to prep him for a tower, and he's a very considerate, curious player. Like,
yeah. And I think like that's the thing, is just like, it was starting to bring people along, but you have to have some follow-up, and there was no follow-up. But I digress.
Yeah, well, and especially this game is so involved that I do think that's a good point about, like, if you're playing MetaZoo on the regular, you probably don't have time for other games.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not playing Lorcana right now because I want to give any game a year.
Yeah, I don't have the focus for that for like a million different games. I like one game, and that's what I kind of stick with. But hopefully it keeps going.
It doesn't have to. I think that's a big thing. It doesn't have to end here. Like, none of us are predicting that, at least on this stream, we're not predicting the end of the game. Like, this video is not called The End of MetaZoo. It's just like, you guys have an uphill battle, and it's not all based on like things out of your hand. Everyone gets it, right? When it's out of your hand. We all get like a delay, we get that, but at this point it's like behavior, it's the fact that the employees we got in contact for like use words like toxic, not listening, that sort of thing. You don't have that problem in other card games.
Or even if you do, they stop.
Or I should say smaller card games. You typically
Yeah,
don't have that problem because it wouldn't
like
live.
yeah, they wouldn't live. Eventually, like, if somebody is doing some nefarious practices, like they're selling like sample cards or something like that, like, and it's the creator, like other indie TCGs, everybody's like done with it. Or if there's somebody who's saying some like slurs or something like that, everybody's done with it. But you know, I you have to also hold yourself accountable, like with the people that you're supporting and the places where you're deciding to put your money into. Is like, I mean, again, just because it isn't happening to you doesn't mean that it's necessarily it couldn't be you one other day or some other time. You could be in the crosshairs as well.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like to shout out with community stuff that this isn't true everywhere is like we have it's a pretty small, but we have like a queer caster Discord for queer people within the game. And we're all on teams and the teams have been great. Everyone I've met has been great through that. Like this game's got a lot going for it in being like welcoming to identities that a local card game might or local card shop might not, especially with like really aggressive competitive scenes, which is part of the reason why I'm like, come on, guys, do good, do good.
It's like, yeah, I just there's a lot of opportunity. I know I mean, we're getting close to 3 hours, which is, it feels like it's flown by.
Yeah.
If there's, I mean, questions, if there's any like, people have any like thoughts or, tinfoil conspiracies, I'm sure everybody has their own. I just think that I want to also give, a lot of kudos to the chat, because for the most part
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of respect, a lot of like, transparency, a lot of like just maturity, and overall just being very, very you know warm with the conversation, because I know everybody wants to be like, I hate MetaZoo and MetaZoo sucks and it's going to the trash and it's dumpster and I'm dumping all the, but we really mean it from a good place. And maybe just us saying this might not necessarily uh bode well as far as some of our experiences going forward, but just know that since we are on here with you all, we are doing this from a good place.
Well, and I do think like you need to, when there's struggle, have conversations, have catharsis. You need processing. Like that's part of community. You need to like process within the community. That's not something that like the game necessarily encourages on its own platforms, but we've got our own platforms. Like that's what I love about content creation. You can just make it. Nobody can stop you from making it.
For sure. And like, I just wanted to do so well because it had so much potential. Like the shows,
It was doing real good. Like
I remember Logan out. We were like, oh, we could be pro players, and that was the dream and the vision. And it's just like these. Maybe there's a maybe. I'll say this because I know that everybody's like, oh, Mike and Andy, whose run was better. I think Mike had a lot of great visions and dreams that
yeah.
the same problems was there too that are happening now. I just think that it looks better because it's not in our face, but we were still having like delays and things not happening and dismissiveness. So I don't want
their attitude, like it's very impressive how in line their attitudes are. I think Andy's is definitely goes down harder than Mike's does, but Mike, that was with Andy. Like when he was a mod, I didn't know who he was, but I remember messaging the head mod and being like, "Hey, this guy's doing a lot of clicky behavior and scaring a lot of people out of the game through just being harsh and rude to them." Because I have, come from a very big Discord server, and it is wild watching him get promoted up the ranks, and that's not something that seems to be learned from. I think Moldy has a comment.
Oh yeah, no. There's some good. Wait, there's a question, and then I think I saw Logan post something. But there was a question about, do we have a? I think I saw it. do you have a direct message to MetaZoo? I guess this whole talk has been, I guess the direct message would be like to get it together. This isn't a player thing. This isn't a LGS thing. This isn't a collector thing. It's a everything body thing. And again, we love and care about the game, but you're screwing it. You're blowing it, son. And we need y'all to get it together because I still want to play MetaZoo. I still want to. I might be in the salt cavern, super salty about what's going on, but it's coming from a place of like I really do care, and we've like collectively a community, we've been the hugest like supporters, and we've talked about MetaZoo so much to our friends and family that we just don't want this to go because the unfortunate reality about it is as soon as a game goes or as soon as somebody leaves the community, you don't see them for a while, or they might be on to different things. And so the I guess the bad reality is that if MetaZoo's gone, it's going to be tougher for us all to come together, like going to the towers, going to the release parties and stuff like that. Those are forever going to be cherished as some of my fondest memories. Yeah. But if this does leave us, then that might, just the communication, just the lines of all that, and people growing up, having families, all this other stuff, it convolutes that and makes it to where somebody might drop off for a little bit, or you might not talk to somebody that you used to talk to regularly. So I don't want that to leave. So that's kind of what my big point of it is.
Yeah, I think my message to MetaZoo would be like the community that you have attracted rules, and they're gonna go somewhere else. Like if it's not with you, it's with other people, and like that's something I'm grateful for. Is I can play other card games with these people if I want to, but you're not gonna benefit from that. Like you attracted the solid community, and the way you're currently going, you're not gonna benefit from that. Other games are gonna benefit from that, and then just practically, it's like get War and Seven Seas out. You've already disappointed us. 2024 mentally, psychologically, anytime there's a new year, there's this like idea of clean slate. Put some of that money into like LGS play, and not in a bribe way. Just like you're going to need War to come out. You're going to need to chill out with these releases. Like you're going to need to build up your constructed scene and then give people a reason to play and leverage that on top of Cryptid Clash. Like if people can go play in a 1K that you fund and then pass out a bunch of Cryptid Clash cards, it's probably not going to hurt.
Let's see. Is Colin peaceful? No. Colin isn't peaceful. Peaceful stopped. So there's like a couple of child prodigies that play. Peaceful was one of them. That he was originally on our team. Peaceful's love for the game kind of stopped after in main chat he was asking questions, like asking Mike a bunch of questions, and Mike, ripped a new one in him in terms of like just laid into him. And that's when he stopped and his care kind of like diminished. So again, another experience.
Well, and that I feel like this is the big boy version of that chat of like, it's like, you think Peaceful speaking in bad faith of all people? This kid's in high school and he's making some of the best card analysis out right now for Cryptid Nation.
I think I Spicy Dragon Lord, I definitely think we should do something in person. I think there's talks of something in person, but again, just knowing the back ends of stuff, like there's a lot of time, effort, and money to do that. And in the beginning, there's like the prospects of like, oh, I'm heading out west and I'm going to find gold. Because if we keep it 100, a lot of people saw MetaZoo and there's opportunities, and you can kind of like position yourself to be at the beginning of something big. And so I definitely think that it takes a lot of resources to do that, because the extravaganzas were a lot of resources. Like people were giving up their time with loved ones, their finances, their just time in general to make things happen on that front. So I would that's a cautionary tale as well.
Yeah. Harley, Epic Tube HD. I still believe the sale to Sanrio is going. I believe they're just buying time till the sale finalizes. Just an opinion. That was hard to watch. For those not in the know, eBay at, I believe, was it Comic-Con, had those like 2 booster boxes with a bunch of promos and some extras for $300. And they just dropped that to $150. Like at least they refunded people. Like that was good, but just for any partners who are stuck with product with that going on. Like, you need, I feel like you need at least 50% of your product to be wins. Maybe you can deal with one disaster out of every 4. I don't know if you can deal with 2 disasters in a row. Like, or Native was a good, Seance was financially a disaster as far as like releases go. I like the set. And then, everything before that
was there's literally something happened on every major core release, like whether it be mapping the packs or anything. Like
well, and that's something I feel like there's other people who'd probably be equipped to do a stream like this or put something on YouTube talking about what their experience is, because like fact of the matter is I'm not invested in Sanrio. I wasn't planning on buying those cards. I'm still not planning on buying those cards. I don't have the energy right now. Like, I haven't gotten the gas back to like play this game, which, anytime you're tapping into a new set, like between all of those things, like I don't feel a lot of hurt, but I know there's hurt. I felt hurt in other ways. And so I think you should talk about that.
Yeah. No, we for sure still love Cryptic Clash. I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's allowing people to play from wherever they're at.
Yeah, Cryptic Clash would get me, just being able to like kind of mindlessly, because anytime I'm playing on TTS, I think because all of my like competitive training is on there, I have like this weight that comes with me. And I'll make, if things are clear, I'll make Cryptic Clash content. Like I'll do kind of what I did with Towers and try to get people like started with decks and stuff.
For sure. I think we're just going to have to see how the card pool is.
Yeah.
We're going to also, what'll be interesting is I think MetaZoo really should be studied in a case study, or should be like
that's
analyzed.
A documentary.
Yeah, because if Cryptic Clash does well, how does that affect the regular card market? Like I know that again, why would I know players are the most cost effective, I think, in terms of like they're not just going to waste money on singles if they don't need it for a deck. That's why you see a lot of players play the same deck religiously and they don't necessarily change it often. And so how is that going to affect the major card market? Are we going to a full digital client or a full digital experience? So it's just one of those things where I will definitely be interested in that, the results of that study, because in my opinion, I think that it's going to, fragment a little bit, but we'll see.
Well, and that's where the thing I worry about, like a financial thing going with Cryptic Clash with tournaments, is as long as Mike or Andy are in charge, they have shown us that they're going to make an announcement with justifications based on what benefits them. So if, a tournament, if there's some hiccups and it goes, they could easily be like, we're not paying out because we found out these people had 3 other people behind them instructing them on like what cards to pick. This wasn't fair. And this reason this person was hacking. And therefore, whether that's true or not, like, I just don't think you can go forward with this leadership unless that's locked in. Cause like they were clear with that when we were talking about Caster Cup. We're like, what if there's disconnection? So like they'll have to deal with that. So it's like, all right, you put all this prep, you could have gone to day 2 and now you didn't because your connection died. That was my original accessibility thing. I was like, I think you need both because not everyone's got a good computer. I had to give Ricky a mouse so that his could function. And even then we had to like adjust our tabletop tables just so all of our computers could function with it. And obviously like traveling is a whole other like flavor of that. But for a lot of people, they might be able to drop 500, 600 on travel and win some money where they can't drop $2,000 on a computer and set up. And if they even have internet, like strong internet where they're at.
Yeah. And then you have to wait for the mobile
like you
client.
Need both. Yeah.
You got to have both. It's the same thing. Everybody's just like looking at it. It's like, oh, it's so accessible. You might have to have, again, you can buy a computer or a laptop, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have the money for that, or you have that, maybe you're still playing with your old deck from a while back, or your friends are giving you cards. You might not have the money to be able to play Cryptic Clash. But again, people are like saying, preaching accessibility, but there's on the same ends of the spectrum, there's still problems that you have to solve and that you have to account for.
Yeah. Metratus says Cryptic Clash is going to be a different game than paper, in my opinion. I agree. It's going to have to be. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I think being able to streamline the game, and that's where I'm also like, make a casual format. Like, make something that's fun to goof off in an LGS and doesn't take 3 hours. Like,
For
if you can
sure.
hand someone a deck, like, and they can just sit down and have fun before a tournament. Because that was another thing where it's like you go to, and they started doing side events, which from what I understand were like hosted by stores
Yeah.
at towers. But I was like, man, if you had a non-competitive format, and so if you scrub out at a tower, you can just go play a deck that you're not worried about giving the whole farm away for the next tournament. Like, I think that'd be good. And those are things where it's like, are there currently speed bumps when it comes to playing MetaZoo for people? How can we, and this gets away from, I think, our 2023. This is just principles in general. Because, like, I love the gameplay. I think gameplay is good. I've enjoyed towers. They force a lot of creativity. I think there's sometimes, like, I don't think any of us want to play Dark Tower again, because it's like, okay, we all got the combos down. We got our combos down. But, like, there's a lot of value in that. But now it's just like, how, without diluting your own player base, like, is there something you can do? Because we all have all these cards. Is there another way you could put those cards to work? Because that's what the towers did. But they did it in like a 50K, thing with all the issues we mentioned.
You saw the value of the cards that were associated with said tower. They went up. So there's a direct correlation to what players are influenced into the greater secondary market. But again, we will see what it looks like going into the future. Again, we don't even have any events going forward. Like like I said, vote with your dollar. There has to be something that's announced, and we need to be ready to play by February, because regardless of what you might think, if somebody is already in the life cycle of One Piece or Lorcana in terms of their player life cycle, where they're keeping you fed with events and different pre-release events and different things like that, they're not going to care about Cryptic Clash. They're not going to care about a tower. They're not going to care about anything. They said, hey, I washed my hands. Let me go where they play every Saturday, because that's what I want to do. I want to play at 2 p.m. On Saturday.
Lorcana has their official. They don't even have like an official competitive scene yet. That's starting up in like March, and so that's a whole thing. One Piece. I've been a One Piece reader since 2007. One Piece is currently in its final saga, and it's going to be in that final saga for 5 years, which means One Piece hype every week. There's a new reveal. And so those are tough. Like, if you can't get ahead of that, even if you can get ahead of that, I think it's going to be tough. But like, I'll play. I got these cards. Here's, like, I've told other people this. I'm like, when I get into games, even when I make content, I'm like, I'm not making this with the goal of any response from MetaZoo, because I know MetaZoo can act any kind of way, and that's going to make me miserable, and I don't want to put effort into something that's going to make me miserable. I'm making this for the players. I'm making these under that restrictions. And same thing when I bought product, I kind of did it with like, okay, how could this go right? How could this go wrong? And I adjusted for it. And that's with like, I'm like, well, at the very least, if war drops or whatever, I want, when I'm like done with Krypton Nation block, to build 8 of the highest powered decks and have it in a pod to play with friends. Because that's something Ricky would say when people are like, why do you play MetaZoo? He's like, because I want to play Magic with Moxes, and like I want to play a high power card game, which is what we have. But like, that's not going to make MetaZoo any money. That's not going to help the community. That's just my own little treasure piece.
Oh man, MetaZoo.
Gail says Towers fucked over the LGS constructed tournament. Sucked to watch happen. We don't have enough players to do both.
Yeah, that's why I said fragmenting the player base.
I gotta ask you, if you had equal pricing for a tower format and for a constructed format, and is that like you kind of do one or the other? Would you spend more of your time with constructed or with towers?
I try to play them all. I think it made you better for Blitz, because some people, like, I played the same deck every game in Blitz, but I think that also the familiarity within the card base lets you just be knowledgeable and like figure out, oh well, this could be good or this could be good. But I also think that for the most part, you just don't want to fragment it, because it did hurt the LGSs. Because why am I getting ready for? Why would I play at an LGS if I'd have to prepare for a tower? Nothing that.
Unless you send the LGSs, like, because you can do release event nights. So you can send LGSs, hey, here's going to be the tower format. You get to get that announced at your LGS. And here's promos of cards that are legal in that format, like alt arts. So when you go to the tower, you can go and flex on people. Like, there's stuff that could be done. that wouldn't just like completely, but then again, like I'm curious about towers going in. As much as I want that cosmic aura, big old shrug. Because in theory, they got those forest, they have the squonk. They got the squonk plushies. Like they've got other tower.
They said they had
ready.
Castle Cup stuff too, but I look. If they did, they'd probably be selling it by now.
That's true.
Again, I'm just you got to connect the dots. I'm saying you got to put this all together. This is a full like fledged movie, and you got to beginning, middle, and end. And so if you can cancel the towers, cancel the Castle Cup, doing pre-orders. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
CS format was cool. I think it was a great opportunity to like, see what pseudo or some type of like blitz format could look like. Like I think Dom and Bats and the team, they developed that earlier on. I forgot who did, maybe Sean, if he's still in the chat. I don't remember who exactly, because at the time I wasn't with Caster Society, so I wasn't in the know about any of that stuff. And so I don't know who necessarily developed it, but I know that it was dope. Like that first extravaganza was pretty cool.
I'm looking at my notes, seeing if I missed anything. We did a pretty good job talking about stuff.
I think
anybody
we did.
Else got any questions
before we shut this thing down?
Yeah.
Good, Tuffy.
Yeah.
And also, oh yeah. I told Phil, I said, Phil, do the draw. Don't do the draw. You got to play ninth, but it's okay. Mr. Nice Guy said, how are you guys doing? Well, we're doing well. I mean, I'm doing well. Esther, are you doing well?
Yeah, I've been having a good December. It's like I've just been taking all this time I was putting into cards and putting it into my own projects. So I've been productive. I'm working on a role-playing game. I'm always working on shows, so going through scripts and stuff. Someone asked what my Discord name was. I believe it's Station Blue. But also, if you go into any of the Discords and you type in Esther, I should come up. And go in Mishi's Discord. Go in Rami's Discord. The Mishi Discord, that thing's great. Like, they're putting on multiple tournaments a week. If you want to stay alive in the game, I think that's a good way to go. I'd be curious. I haven't looked into it on which like local scenes are doing well right now. I know SoCal's dead, which is a shame because we went from like having not a lot to like having our first tournaments. Jason just posted the Discord link to Mishi's Discord. We went from that to having medals to it being more dead than ever, but I still see NorCal doing stuff.
Yeah, we don't have anything in Texas. Houston, Austin, and
Rainshine said both of our Discords are in the announcement at Mishi's. This is now an ad for Mishi's.
For sure. Shout out to Mishi's. Let me see. I think Harley said, let's not forget they didn't have money in January to pay for native, so they made partners pay for the products 4 months in advance. That's a lot of capital for any LGS to put up without making money. Dang, I didn't even know that. They make partners. Jesus.
Well, because that's when I got back, because like we had products. I was like, oh, it released. And I remember talking to some people who were involved with stores. They're like, it hasn't really, like, we haven't got our product yet. And it's like, oh, they did like 2 releases on this.
That's interesting.
So, and that's the thing where I'm like, never put that on a partner. Surely you guys can get like a line of credit. Well, I can't speak to their business. Like if their business, if they're not up enough to be able to put out a set, then that's a whole different game. Like that's where you just, all of this becomes irrelevant and you need to like completely move your business into some other avenue.
How would we feel about release event decks being changed from theme deck reskins to equivalent of MTG's Jumpstart packs? I like that, where you can get a packs and make a deck, but again, that's going to take a lot of development and a lot of, you're going to have to put a lot of capital in the curation of you playtesting and developing the cards. And as we know, MetaZoo, again, you got getting playtester cards is cool, but I don't think anybody's really getting paid as far as that. Like, again, you could see like their levels of commitment by the money that they're putting into spending for these type of things. And so in order for that to happen with MetaZoo, you're going to have to pay for a, you know, a full-fledged R&D team. Little interesting fact, when I was a kid, I won Junior Super Series in Magic and they give you like a scholarship, but they also allow you to play test, and it's good because it allows you to play test the cards, but as a kid, you can see if these cards are easy to understand. It's quality control, just helps kind of like flesh it out for little kids and understanding if the game has too high of a skill threshold. But I got paid in scholarship money for that opportunity based off of winning the JSSs. So you have to put in money to, get a really good product. And if you don't, you're going to, things are going to slide through the cracks and different things like that.
Well, and that's, taking myself out of the equation. If Towers was not increasing the player base, then while it was fun for us, they're wasting their money. It's like you got to put money into, and that was more of an issue of things they promised early. I think the game came out and they're like, we got our 10K Kickstarter boxes, we got all this, we can do no wrong. Let's like bring all these people in. The game's not easy to get into, but it's easy enough where like if you're not bringing in other players from other games just to get the money outside of like Silverman's crew, then you got either a marketing problem or there's something going on. And a lot of it was just bad blood. Like I know a lot of like MetaZoo got a lot of bad reputation in a lot of card shops. Because anytime there's a new game, you got to justify your spot at the shop. Like if you're a player, because people are always going to be curmudgeons. I'm a curmudgeon. It's very difficult to get me into a new game just for the level of investment. Like I'll support other games. I'm glad they exist, but and then you add that on top of people just being able to search like endless like negative videos that come from like financial stuff, and then like looking up comments by whoever the CEO at the time is being rude to stores or whatever else.
Yeah, for sure. Rusty Artifact, when they capped Water Tower and people didn't get in, that was a big deal for the rest of the towers. Even they had no caps, just got smaller and smaller and never reached what the Water Tower was. Agreed. I think that was
luck.
That was a bad look because you should have just kept letting everybody come. If you were able to somehow get to Loveland, Ohio, because like I said, fly into Columbus, drive to take an Uber, and this is right after that freaking acid rain.
Yep.
That was I saw the hood of our Uber car was like corroded, and it was like the paint was chipping off. I said, y'all got us in this dang dirty water place, and y'all and we're here, and we made it here. I don't know if I might have mesothelioma or mesothelioma at the end of this, like 15 years down the road, and it'll probably be because I went to that tower, but it was worth it. At the end of the day, they should have let everybody in.
Well, and that was the thing too with doing cap. It gives off this impression that 1,000 people, 2,000 people, any amount of people want to come in, and so then when less people are there, I was surprised with how many people were at Dark Tower. I thought Dark Tower was bigger than Flame Tower, wasn't it, or about the same size? And we packed out that church. Everyone playing Black Mass in that church. But I like Dark Tower a lot. Outside of getting so sick, I hated being sick, but I loved everything else. But I'm also in it for the cryptid. So next day I was running around doing all the Mothman stuff.
Joker's Favorite had some amazing art. Make sure you buy from Joker's Favorites.
Yeah.
But,
and we're always here for love for the community.
For sure.
That's a lot of the creators you like, they're still around. They're just covering other stuff. Like you got Ian moved over to Cardboard and Coffee. Moldy, aka Johnny, is working on Nom Nom, which like, if any of the stuff we talked about today like frustrates you, go check out that game. Communication's big. Obviously, like Mishi, like most of these Discords that were MetaZoo focused have like a One Piece or a Lorcana chat now, so you can still game with the people you've enjoyed gaming while we wait to see like what's going on with MetaZoo.
Ooh, that's a good
Do you
question.
think MetaZoo needs to apologize? I don't think MetaZoo knows how to apologize. I think it's too late. Like I think apologize outside of like, once again, I know this is I don't know the implications because I don't deal with business stuff. Like I am in the indie world usually, but like without getting rid of leadership, And then having someone come in and be like, we're sorry, this is what we've noticed, this is what we want to do about it. Like, I don't know that an apology would do good.
Mm-mm.
Though in the future, apologize for stuff, communicate and apologize for stuff. I think it's a little too late for everything that's come on right now.
Yeah, right now it's just I think that you might have to, clean house and then hit us with the sorry, then, hit us with the roadmaps and hit those expectations, and then we can get some trust back, because it's just, you get let down so many times with MetaZoo. It's like the person in school that you love, and they don't love you back the same way. They don't love you the way that you love them, and so that's MetaZoo for you.
Yeah, and I'd love to see that change.
Let's see.
Is there any resource to learn about why everyone is mad at MetaZoo? I'm pretty new to the game. Literally got in and went to LGS in Jersey, and heard people are pissed at Waddell. Heard a little bit, but would like to know. So, Dr. Steen, in a nutshell, for one, I think a valuable thing to do is follow Lorcana right now and see what people are complaining about to learn what are universal complaints with new card games. And then pay attention to the things, because MetaZoo has everything I'm hearing about Lorcana or heard in One Piece. I heard about MetaZoo, but then there's a lot of unique stuff too. In a nutshell, like Mike was very involved with like talking with people and could be pretty rude. And so a bunch of people are pissed off. And like you can't go in their main Discord and talk it out. And so people talk about that at LGSs. Mike hasn't really been seen. He was seen for about 20 minutes at the gala and hasn't been seen since.
That was another thing. None of the towers, even the one in your backyard.
Yeah, Earth Tower is a bit weird. I don't know if that was just like he knew too many faces who were upset with him, but also like ideally in a game, the CEO is not the game. This is still referring to Dr. Steen. So like, I don't like the gameplay's fun. People are frustrated. If you go back and watch the rest of this stream, like when we post it up, I think we cover pretty thoroughly like what the situation is, what the good and what the bad is, of what's going on right now. But because it's a tight knit community, a lot of us know who's calling the shots, or we assume like we can kind of through process of elimination. So it's not like with Magic where there's hundreds of people working for that company and they're making sets 3 years in advance and like all of that stuff. Like it's a small tight knit thing, and that can be a good thing. But when your two guys at top are not good to people, that's a problem. But if you just got in the game, like don't let that bog you down.
Please don't.
Because stuff is cheap right now. Like if you're just if you're enjoying the game right now is a great time to be coming in, because stuff is cheap. You can get top tier decks. There's a lot of like join that Mishi server because people will help you out there. That's what it comes down to a lot, is like you find the people who've been in the game for the longest are often the most frustrated, or people who've like left. I've like held pretty clear because like I keep my expectations in a specific thing, and I usually will not invest if I know that if it goes terribly wrong, I'm going to be real upset. There's sometimes you can't avoid that. Like with Caster Cup, it's just like, all right, we all, this is happening, and now like this money is wasted. But
yeah,
yeah, and you're seeing Steen. You look at the people are commenting, welcoming you to their stores and stuff. Those are the people. That's what's good about MetaZoo. That's why we're here.
Yeah, like, and granted, with the people who may have been, I think in this group that are somewhat negative or might have like some negative feelings towards the whole MetaZoo experience, they're probably valid in that.
Yeah.
Themselves, because I will say that seeing Tough, I can see why Tuffy, like everybody's like, well, Tuffy, and or who everybody knows who Tuffy is, and you might see how his demeanor might come off, but I think it's valid considering how he was treated in those moments, like in the MetaZoo main chat or in those moments. So I think that everybody experience is valid. Don't let anybody sell you the news, because people will do that. They'll be like, oh well, this is great and all the markets are down, and they're also selling to you. And then there's also people who are like, MetaZoo's dead, MetaZoo's dead, but they also got in at the top, and now they're seeing, and they thought that they were going to get rich off of this, but you have to be kind of even keel, right in the middle. Let's see. Community is amazing. Tuffy Moldy epic. Yeah, the list does go on. There are a lot of people.
Well, and notice, what did Tuffy do? Tuffy's gone working on his own games. Moldy's, teamed up with Victor, making a game. Like, that's the thing, is you don't let it bog you. You just move on to the next thing, or you stay here and hope things change. I think it's a mix, because there's always another card game. But I like MetaZoo. Like, I wasn't just playing this game for whatever reason. Like, I prefer this game to most other games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to, support what Easton's saying. If just because someone's like getting rough doesn't mean they're not coming from someone, and they're not coming from an informed and intelligent position. Every game is going to have all kind. A lot of people have left. Everyone's got a different tolerance level too.
For sure.
And they got different things going in their life. Like, I have a fairly high tolerance level because my investment, I don't do anything for just one reason. Like, even getting into MetaZoo taught me a lot about getting into card games. It saved me a lot of money on like One Piece or something else where I normally would have done that. So like, I got an education there. With making Towers a MetaZoo podcast, I use that to get used to Instagram and to do things that I'm going to do for like non-card game podcasts in the future. So it was a good like testing ground for that. And that's what keeps me in the game. Like the friendships, all of that. It's like, even if this goes wrong, this thing will go right.
For sure. And I think that's, I don't know if there's too many more questions, but
yeah,
I definitely want us, to resonate with everybody. Again, you can make any decision you want to. All we're doing is coming from doing a 2023 recap. Like earlier in there, we talked about all the different issues, the caveats. There's probably a lot more. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of things that, may have happened in person, things like that. But we wanted to present this to you all so you can all connect the dots, because like I said, I can't in good faith talk to you all and say this is all great and everything's fine when it's not. But I'm also not going to say it's just the worst thing ever. I think there definitely needs to be some changes. We both definitely think there needs to be some changes, but just have to we have to be honest that there's going to be some type of threshold. Either there's going to be there's going to be changes that are acceptable and we can live with it, and that it will continue our journey in MetaZoo. And then there's eventually got to be that threshold point where I gotta go. Like, this is not conducive for me. This isn't healthy for me. And I hope and pray that everybody is able to acknowledge that and act on that.
Yeah. And then just, I think this whole thing, rather, notice we haven't done too much proposing differences outside of like, hey, here's stuff you've done, move forward with that. Like, this whole thing's just shining a light and setting expectations. I think I had a whole episode about setting expectations. I think that's huge for dealing with any kind of business. Fane asks, what values have you tried to bring into the community from your own lives? I think for me, it's like a lot of experience. Like, I have a lot of experience as a content creator. I know with like Harley, you saw that come through. That would it was easy for me to come and make like Towers. It was not a difficult thing to do based on my experience, and I knew that would be valuable. And then community building, trying to actually, a thing that helped me with my life is knowing when not to get knowing the level of investment to get in. Because like, you look at me 10 years ago, I would have thrown my whole thing in here and I would have burned out. So kind of knowing like when to turn up the gas, when to turn it down.
I guess for me is like standing up for yourself, because in this game, in this industry, again, you see a lot of people that like young Easton. I was very shy. I didn't like conflict. I didn't like to stand up for myself. And now that I'm a little bit older and mature, I understand that some people might not have the voice that I do, or maybe not have the confidence to, speak out. So that's a big thing. I think another aspect is don't get taken advantage of. Like, not everybody isn't going to have the same level of passion that you do about your or same level of passion about your maybe particular thing that you're enthusiastic about. And so for me, I'm saying, hey, you got to be aware of this stuff, because somebody might see a talent in you that can help them move it along. Like, people grift in these fandoms all the time. Oh, I like Funko Pops. Oh, I like MetaZoo. Oh, I like this another Kickstarter TCG, and they're just selling you up on the news. So I think that you have to be observative of all this stuff and take it down, because if not, you're just going to be like, I like cards, and this person is fleecing you out of your house and your home. And so just be mindful about that, because it's different. It's different, and you have to be aware, because same way that the card game might not love you like you love it, people might not necessarily care about what you care about the same way, and vice versa.
Yeah. People keep saying vote with your wallet. I agree.
Jason, shout out to I'm trying to get more into posting and stuff like that, because I think there's some pretty good interest. There's some caveats between marketing and cards and just in general. So, yeah, vote with your vote with your wallet.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Don't, like, at this point, I don't think it's worth FOMO getting a hold of you. That's something I've learned through, like, competitive, is even if a card ends up coming out and it's $100, the money you'll save not getting into everything let you get that card.
The only way I'll play in a TTS tournament is if Mal plays. If y'all can convince Mal to play in the tournament, I'll play. 100 vote with the wallet. Nah, I'm telling you, you gotta vote with your wallet. Yeah. That's the only way things are gonna change. It's the same way with stocks. When people start not spending money and doing things start to change overall. But yeah, I think that's.
Anybody got one last one? We're almost hit 4 hours. Got 2 hours of mainstream content, 2 hours of conversation. Easton content 2024.
And we're gonna do some more stuff.
Yeah, Easton, what are you trying to do after this? Are you playing other card games or anything?
I'm not gonna lie to you all. I'm thoroughly impressed with sorcery. I'm thorough, and I'm also supportive of Moldy and Nom Nom, but I'm thoroughly impressed with sorcery, just because, like, they were developing the game before the Kickstarter boom. They have their team. I learned, one of my mentors said, you always bet on the CEO. Like, the product can be good, but you bet on the CEO and the team. And I think that resonates with what we're dealing with in MetaZoo. Is maybe you can find things that you can, like, rely on, but you need somebody who's even killed, really good emotional intelligence, who makes really smart strategic decisions. And they've been super communicative. So I think that I've been enjoying like, just watching it. So far I'm just observing, because I haven't really committed to anything yet, but I'm also looking at a lot of different games. Tuffy homie is doing LL Cow, so I'm always going to be super supportive of that. But it's weird but I have played Sorcery a couple times, and it's one of those games where you can play on a Friday night and it not be uber competitive, but you can have a ton of fun, just because it's kind of like chess and Magic all at the same time.
I'll have to take a look at that. I'm as far as card games go, I only have room in my life for 2 at a time. I don't think the thing I was getting out of MetaZoo and looking for at MetaZoo, I don't think I'm easily going to find that in another game, and I'm not looking to do that. But I am hanging out in Nom Nom Verse a lot, just because it offers a different experience. I think for that, if you want, like, chill community and a very methodically developed game, and, like, just to participate in something, it's very different from early MetaZoo. Or even, like, One Piece. Like, what I see with, like, Lorcana and One Piece right now is similar to, like, early MetaZoo, whereas this is, like, the artists are there. So I'm going to be making some videos for them. I got a video coming out in the next week or two, just breaking down, like, what the gameplay is like, bringing in sound design and stuff for that. But I'm never a to the moon person. If I'm going to buy something, if I want to make an investment, I'm making a regular investment. If I'm going to buy something, it's something that I'm going to want, even if it goes to zero, so to say. That being said, like, I've enjoyed that team, and then I'm going to pay attention to MetaZoo, and whatever my next, like, TCG is, I want something I can play locally. Like, I feel like I did enough charity work with MetaZoo, and I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do more, but I want to be lazy with my next game. I want to show up. I just want to show up locally and be able to play with my decks because I'm tired, and I'm tired in the same way you're tired from a good workout for a lot of this year. Sometimes it's not good tired, which we brought some of that energy here, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I'm, check out the YouTube channel, Towers TCG podcast. I just rebranded because you'll see me making stuff there. It's primarily going to be like MetaZoo, Nom Nom stuff right now.
Yeah, and also don't let this experience turn you away from other TCGs, other communities. Yeah. I think there's homes for everybody. There's also like homes for the TCG lifestyle. Like I think early caster society where you're like traveling, doing stuff. I think there's a lot of opportunity. So don't let this experience dampen it or kind of put a stain on your future endeavors. Again, I still have high hopes for MetaZoo, but things definitely have to change.
Yeah. Kyle, shout out my cosmic brother. Yeah, if you guys are playing sorcery up at Hidden Fortress, I'll come play, especially if someone has like a deck you can lend me just so I can get a feel for it.
Oh, it's fun. It is fun.
Yeah, because that was something Cardboardia was talking about that too. So I'm like very picky with games, like extremely picky. I don't buy into hype really.
For sure.
But I think about ready to wrap it up. Thank you everyone for coming. We maintained like over 70 people for most of the stream, and I figured a lot of the people engaging with this would come later. We're going to post this to the YouTube. We're not going anywhere. Like as far as we still exist as human beings, we're still in the card world.
Shout out to Stevie Peppers.
Yeah. And then don't, if you want to do your own thing like this, if you've got your own platform and stuff, like I will back you up. I'm sure Easton will back you up.
Oh, for sure.
There's a difference between a dog pile and like a series of discussions. And I think that's where we're at right now. Epic Tube hardly had one recently, even Argos did one. So we got this one. I think they're like, we didn't talk about market much because I'm not in it for the market, but like there's other things people could talk about. And then shout out, we got some people who got into the game recently. Like that's good to see. Just find the good people, play with them, and then buy cheap cards.
Yeah, like, this is the time to do it. But last, most important thing, make good, smart fiscal decisions. Yes. This isn't a thing about like this is 2020, like inflation, everything is up through skyrocketed. I know that everybody wants to go to every event and buy every new release, and there was that FOMO feeling, but things are starting to get tough. And so make smart decisions. You don't have to buy every single drop. You don't have to, spend money to go here and go there. Be thoughtful about those things because, you just always got to be prepared for if something does come down the road, or if there's a rainy day in the future. I definitely want to do that because, sometimes the TCG landscape can be a little bit kind of like predatory in a way where they make you feel like on the outside if you're not spending money, but do what's best for you. Let's be smart.
Yeah. And use MetaZoo as an example for other card games. If you're like, I got to spend this way now, go look at the singles you might have bought before. Look at the ones you bought high that went low and vice versa. I think there's a good education there. Sure. But with that, we're going to end the stream. Thank you again, everyone. Come say what's up on Instagram. Go into Mishi's Discord. Play some games. I appreciate you all.
Peace.